Boston. It's the final day of the Little East Conference baseball regular season and conference seeding and even playoff berths on the line as we have a doubleheader here between Western Connecticut State and UMass Boston. Hi, everybody. Beautiful day for baseball with Seth Orensky. I'm Bill Spalding. Glad to be with you. Heading into this matchup, UMass Boston already knows, due to a Southern Maine win earlier in the day over UMass Dartmouth, that first place is out of reach, but just one win for the Beacons will guarantee the number 2 seed in the conference tournament, which starts next week. Western Connecticut State is playing for its playoff life and likely needs to win both games today to make the field.
Yeah, I was down there by the Western Connecticut State bench, and one of their assistant coaches was talking to the players and said, we've had our chances. It's all up to us at this point. This past Sunday, they were leading Eastern Connecticut State at Eastern into the latter innings, gave up a couple of late home runs, and lost that game. It's do or die time for Western, but at the same point, the Beacons know they're in. The Beacons know they can't be the number 1 seed. You're playing for pride here on your home field on senior day, and with the Beacons being second in the regional rankings, a couple losses to an under 500 team could really hurt you when those third and then final regional rankings come out the next 2 weeks.
You mentioned those regional rankings in case you're an at-large bid and you don't win the conference tournament. Let's take a look around the Little East Conference as we look to see what the playoff picture is looking like on this final day of conference play. Mentioned Southern Maine has already locked up the number 1 seed with a win earlier today against UMass Dartmouth. Only the top 6 seeds are through, so you can see Rhode Island College and Keene State both picked up wins today to get to 5 and 8 in conference play. Western Connecticut State, a lot of work to do, needing both wins and then needing the tie-breaking scenarios to shake out their way as well.
Yeah, and pretty much Keene State should be in because of their sweep of Western earlier on. It comes down to what happens in that Rick Plymouth State game. Plymouth State has already been eliminated. They're playing for pride at home for their seniors. If you're a Western fan, you're a big-time fan of Plymouth here in Game 2.
Western Connecticut State had a lot of success on this field last year, running to the Little East Conference Finals before falling to Eastern Connecticut State. Let's take a look at the Little East Conference standings. Oh, we're looking at those right now, so let's instead look at the series history between these two teams. UMass Boston leads the series 26-18-1, but remember last year, Western Connecticut State really handled the Beacons in this tournament here at home. It's a big reason why UMass Boston left its home field without the conference championship and needed the at-large bid.
All 4 games happened here in Boston between the two teams. Western Field was unplayable during the regular season. The Beacons took the first one, lost 11-1 in 7 innings thanks to a 10-run 7th here during the regular season. And then in the postseason, it was the senior starters for that Western team. Todd Lyons was phenomenal, appeared in 3 games. They were doing everything they could, got themselves to the championship game, fell just a bit short. The Beacons defeated everybody else in the conference tournament, including the 2nd seed and the 3rd seed, just couldn't beat the 6th seed, and that's why they had to get the large bid last year.
And you look at that score from the game that eliminated the Beacons, 17-14.
A little bit different temperatures and conditions.
Yeah, they hit their way through that tournament for sure. Now, 4 things you need to know going into today's matchup between UMass Boston and Western Connecticut State, a doubleheader. UMass Boston, you mentioned it already, ranked 2nd now in the regional rankings, and in one of the national polls currently pulling in a number 28 ranking. So people starting to take notice that the Beacons have won 10 consecutive games.
Well, when you look at this UMass Boston program the past 3 seasons, it's been 12 out of 14 2 years ago, 14 in a row last year going to the LEC tournament, and now on a win streak of 10 in a row and a chance to make it potentially 12. The Beacons have lost 2 of their last 20 games. This Beacons team, for one reason or another, gets hot when it comes to mid to late April.
Of course, Senior Day is always a doubleheader, so we count both games as part of the Senior Day record, and UMass Boston has not lost a game in its final doubleheader of the season. Its Senior Day doubleheader at home over the last 3 years. They've dominated those 6 wins to outscore their opponents by a 54-17 margin. Mentioned Western Connecticut State's perilous position heading into this weekend. If they do not make the tournament, it'll be just the 2nd time in the last 5 years that they've missed out. Meanwhile, UMass Boston playing for a little bit of regular season history as well, already at 9-3 in the conference, 27-9 overall. 2 wins today would set a single season record for regular season wins with 11 in the Little East Conference.
Just shows how far this program has come under Brendan Igerbroth. The Beacons used to not be much of a threat in the LEC, a hope to get into the tournament, and then maybe they could do something. 2010 really was a statement when the Beacons not only came in as a lower seed and won the LEC tournament down at Eastern Connecticut State, but then won the regional tournament. The Beacons hoped that would be a sign of things to come. Not necessarily, but as soon as Monin Park came about. This Beacons team has been a different kind of program. They've been able to get recruits who maybe were a little bit too high in terms of their star ratings before they built this stadium, and the Beacons have just been such a more consistent team, and a big part of it is the turf here, getting into practice every day, getting to continue to play games even when the weather is bad. It helps baseball players more than maybe any other sport.
Our player to watch is actually 4 players to watch today on Senior Day. We look at the 4 UMass Boston seniors. Not a huge class, but a very impactful class for the Beacons.
It should be a 5-man class, and that's the scary part. The Beacons are doing what they've done this year without their top hitter from a year ago, Dave Murphy, redshirting, so the Beacon senior class next year becomes a little bit better. But you look, 2 4-year guys right in the middle, Dan Mantoni and Anthony Searles, the second and third guys in. They've been 4-year starters, have been integral parts, and then what Brendan Eigerbart loves doing, finding guys who are looking for a new home. Luke Nagel on the right, a junior transfer in his 3rd year with the Beacons after redshirting last season. Matt Tulley, former ESPN Boston, Mr. Massachusetts, bounced around Division I and D2. We'll see him here in game number 1 on the mound. This group has helped UMass Boston in every facet, and great leadership across the board from these 4. They've already had so much success. They're trying to get 100 wins. No class has even come close to that in UMass Boston baseball history.
Tulley will pitch game 1. Dan Mantoni scheduled to pitch game 2 once he gets a pesky school presentation out of the way. And how hot has Luke Nagel been recently? Over his last 6 games, he is 15 for 21, hitting .667.
And let's not forget Anthony Searles. The batting average is deceptive. He's been hitting the ball extremely well, but his defense is as good as any Division III catcher I've ever seen over the past couple of weeks. It seems like every home game he's throwing out a base runner trying to steal and potentially picking one off as well. He has so many more caught stealings and pickoffs than any other catcher in the LEC, and he's probably towards the top in the country as well.
Going through the ground rules here at Monin Park, so we'll take time to show you the Western Connecticut State batting order. A team that hits for a good average, .308, that's 3rd in the league, but does not hit for much power. 7th in home runs, 7th in doubles, and last in triples. The strength in the middle with E.J. Lavoie and Frank Vartuli.
Took the words right out of my mouth. We saw these 2 hitters a year ago. They were a huge reason why Western made it to the LEC championship game against their rivals Eastern. Both of those teams slugged their way to the LEC championship game. Lavoie is not your prototypical shortstop. He's listed, looking at EJ, he's one of the tallest shortstops I've ever seen. 6 foot 180. He's got a great stroke, and Vartuli is right up there. It's going to be impossible to decide who the LEC first team all-conference first baseman is. You have Taylor Casciola for UMass Dartmouth hitting over 400, Frank Vartuli, who has a ton of power numbers, and now Chris Fowler in the Beacons dugout hitting 400 with a league-high 41 RBI.
And how about 29 games in a row with a hit as well, only 5 shy of the UMass Boston record.
The first basemen in this league are having great seasons, and I do not envy the LEC coaches next week when they vote on those polls to see which man is the odd man out.
Maybe they can find a way to make one of them the designated hitter or something like that. Fantasy rules, if you played a couple games as a DH, you qualify.
That would work for me. This is a very good hitting team. The question is, will they have enough pitching? They graduated those 2 senior starters from a year ago. They threw Andrew Fogarty, which was surprising to me that he threw 5 innings yesterday. Last year, he was a key guy out of the bullpen. I think he pretty much pitched in every game. But Fogarty's moved into a starter role because they lost those top couple starters. It's going to be interesting today. The focus that Steve Consigler, our other color commentator who will be on for Game 2, always says is get into the bullpens. That's even more important today when this Western team is not as strong when it comes to pitching as compared to their batting numbers.
Starter for Game 1 for WestConn will be George Bielizna, who in 8 games this year has pitched an average of about 6 innings a start. He's only walked 5 batters the entire season, but he does allow opponents to hit him better than a .300 batting average. So he'll throw strikes and challenge the Beacons, who will start with Matt Tulley. Let's take a look at the defense for UMass Boston. Behind Matt Tulley, it's the same defensive alignment the Beacons have made the norm this week during a 5-game and 4-day schedule. Charlie Hughey's played a tremendous shortstop when you consider the fact that last year he played first base. He started the season this year at second and has had to shift to short out of necessity.
There's not a defensive liability out there, and a lot of teams will throw someone out in a position knowing they need his bat. Even Luke Nagel, and it should be Sal Persino instead of Danny Brown. That's on me for not updating that. But Luke Nagel has shown that he's at least an average left fielder, if not better than that, plus defenders in center field, shortstop, and second base. And even Chris Fowler and Kyle Boudreaux have taken steps forward. And, of course, Anthony Searles cannot harp on how important his defense has been to this team.
All right, we'll pause for the national anthem. When we come back, we'll have first pitch. Set for baseball in Boston, just off the water. Temperature in the mid-50s today and just a few clouds in the sky. Games moved up from tomorrow to today because it is supposed to monsoon in New England tomorrow. So the entire league moved their doubleheaders from tomorrow to today. It has caused a little bit of shuffling and some course loads and some class schedules, but outside of that, everybody will end up with an extra day of rest before the Little East Conference Tournament.
And Bill, that's the big thing. I mean, clearly these are student athletes, regardless of the Division I, Division II, Division III. You want them in school as much as possible, but this is the LEC tournament as shown last season. It can come down to a 6 playing. Last year, Eastern was the 5. So all 6 teams are very much in play for winning this tournament. To have the number 1 pitchers on full rest pitching next Wednesday versus if they had moved it to Saturday or Sunday on short rest, you're giving every team an even chance versus the teams that have really good hitting and not so good pitching. So it'll be very interesting, and it starts with this man. Matt Tulley has been on fire. He struggled his first 2 For his first conference appearance, he actually came in relief because JT Morin made the first start at UMass Dartmouth, took the loss after a pass ball that it was a difficult play for Anthony Searles. UMass Dartmouth ended up coming back for a rare Beacons loss. But after his start against Rick, he's limited the walks. He's been filthy when it comes to strikeouts and was named to the D3Baseball.com Team of the Week this week.
Full numbers on Tulley: 9 games, 6 starts, 5-2, 2.95 ERA. He's pitched 39 2/3 innings, given up only 31 hits, 21 walks. He has struck out 47. You mentioned his strong starts recently, maybe none better than last time out on Saturday against Plymouth State. 6 1/3 scoreless innings, gave up just 2 hits and a walk, and he struck out 8.
And that's what makes the Beacon so difficult when it comes to these conference doubleheaders. Between Tulley and Mantoni, or even Mantoni and Morin, the Beacons know they're going to be in the games after 5 or 6 innings, and they trust their bullpen as much as any team. When you have Bobby Tramandozzi second in the conference in saves, and Brian Kaufman leads the conference in ERA, plus a couple other guys in Chris Monroe and Joe McGuire, the Beacons have one of the best pens in the entire conference, and they're not overtaxed. A lot of times you see teams with good bullpens throw them consistently and maybe tire them out. Those guys should be fresh for next week's tournament.
Cleet LaRusso swings through a high fastball. LaRusso hitting at .327 on the year with 3 home runs and 14 RBIs. By the way, first pitch, 4:05 today, scheduled for 2 full 9-inning games here from Boston. This ball's fouled away, count to 1-2. Tulley has pretty overpowering stuff. Hard slider and a fastball that he can comfortably sit in the low 90s.
And Matt's a really humble guy. Sometimes you see these higher level transfers and you worry how it's going to work in terms of team chemistry. He's fit right in with this group.
Inside, he plunks LaRusso on a 1-2 pitch. So Tulley loses Cleet LaRusso, leadoff base runner for the Colonials of Western Connecticut State. Team that hits for a good average, .308 on the season. That's 3rd in the league, but they're only 6th in runs because they're right near the bottom in slugging percentage as a team. They only slug a rather pedestrian 408. Yesterday's loss, a good example, a 10-0 loss to Wesleyan, 9 hits, but 8 of them were singles for the Colonials.
Yeah, but you always have the Monon Park effect. Certain teams seem to hit extremely well here. Last year we saw Eastern slug their way, and they came in hitting pretty quietly when it comes to slugging numbers, and then they had 15 runs scored in the first game here at Monon a couple weeks ago. This Western team might have some good vibes playing here after having so much success a season ago.
17 runs against UMass Boston to eliminate them from the Little East tournament last year. Bielizna's the batter, 287 hitter with 11 RBIs. Check on LaRusso, who has 9 stolen bases this season. Bisetto, a junior from Old Lyme, Connecticut, out of Old Lyme High School. Plays in the middle of the infield for this Western Connecticut squad.
Yeah, he's a guy with a little bit of versatility, bounces between second and third. First base and first base and shortstop pretty much locked down between Lavoie and Matt Tulley, but it's nice to have that kind of comfort if you're John Soucy, where you can move guys around trying to find the hot batter, the right matchup in terms of the splits righty-lefty.
Runner bluffing, pitch high. 2-1 count to Bisetto after Tulley hit Cleet LaRusso. Western Connecticut State doesn't steal a ton as a team this season. They've only stolen 37 bases. That put them 7th in the league. But of the 37, about a quarter belong to Cleet LaRusso, who's on first base right now.
And I think this could be a little bit of just Matt being in a different situation. Pitchers are such creatures of habit. He's been starting game 2 the last couple of weekends. Now it's a midweek game. Dan Mantoni unavailable because of a presentation means that things are a bit different.
There's a swing and a miss for a strike, and it runs the count to 2-2.
And, well, retract that second statement. Dan has just gotten here, so his presentation is over. And there's a chance that he pinch hits for the DH, Ryan McCormick, depending on what the Beacons feel.
You got to wonder if, now that Dan has the pressure of a big academic presentation off his back, if he's just ready to explode today and have one of the best starts of his career, especially when you're a senior, you start to realize, hey, my academics may be behind me, or they're getting more and more behind you over the next couple weeks. And the real world is looming.
Yeah, well, it's not just academics, as that one's low.
It's a walk for Tulley to Bisetto.
He's an electrical engineer major. I was talking to him. His presentation was on a project that he got funded along with Julian Murphy, another brilliant athlete who's also an extremely smart student. They got a $40,000 grant to work on. It was something that was a little bit past my level of intelligence to comprehend, but I mean, this is real-world stuff with real implications. So that's one of the things UMass Boston calls itself a research institution. Well, this is that research that we're talking about.
Oh, slow start for Tulley leads to a quick visit on the mound, a hit by pitch and a walk, and Western Connecticut State's threatening early. UMass Boston can't finish any better than second in the conference thanks to Southern Maine's win earlier today. Just one win will be enough for the Beacons to guarantee that number 2 seed. Meanwhile, Western Connecticut State needs 2 wins and some help to survive to the Little East Conference Tournament. Plymouth State has already been eliminated with a loss earlier in the day. Here's E.J. Lavoie, 404 hitter to lead Western Connecticut State this season. Fastball strike from Tulley. Zach Piro, who will hit 6 today, does hit 414, but if you're going on enough at-bats to actually qualify to be the leader, he's only had 24 at-bats this season.
Big thing for Tulley right now is with the offense working the way it is, just pitch to contact. Allow E.J. Lavoie, as good as he is, to try to hit one out here because that's what he's aiming to do. Trust your outfielders, trust your infielders. The Beacons will trade outs for potential runs in this first inning because they've been slugging so well over these past 10 games.
Slider down low, Searles snapping. Safe. Throw to the alternate side of the bag. He's picked off runners in each of the last 2 home games, including a runner off of second base that really swung what was a close game against Salve Regina before the Beacons blew it wide open to win by double digits.
Bill, you hit it there, though. If that throw's on the shortstop side rather than the second baseman side, that's an out right there. Cleet LaRusso has to be more aware of what Anthony Searles likes to do.
Slider clips the outside corner. Ball and 2 strikes on E.J. Lavoie.
And right now I'm thinking off-speed pitch, probably a slider. The big thing is, if you're Anthony Searles, you have to keep this in front of you. Don't let the runners advance if it does bounce up there.
Tulley checks on second again. Lavoie, a senior out of East Granby, Connecticut. Played at East Granby High School. Of course, Western Connecticut State located in Danbury.
Yeah, this is the most difficult school to get to. Western, it's a long trip wherever they go, but it's also a really rough road trip if you have to go there.
Pitch low. Yeah, with the usual traffic, you're looking at 3.5, maybe 4 hours from Danbury here to Boston. Even longer for WestConn if they do qualify for the Little East Tournament, which will be played up at Southern Maine in Gorham.
And I say if you have to go there because these Beacon seniors never played at Western Connecticut State.
Breaking ball down in the dirt.
So many weather conditions. Western typically gets pretty hard hit by snowstorms when they do happen. So last year's games were played at Monon. I believe they played at Campanelli 3 years ago.
Full count to E.J. Lavoie. Nobody out here on the top of the first of a doubleheader. Matt Tulley running into some trouble. Payoff pitch. Ground ball could be two. This will help. Hughie flips to second. Lopez to first. A 6-4-3 double play. And just like that, you can get a starting pitcher into a rhythm.
It sounds simple, but with the Beacons defense as it is, especially here at home, they're going to gobble up. They make so many double plays. Josh Lopez is one of the best second basemen. We've talked about it all season long. Charlie Hughie's a plus defender wherever you put him. It can be any of the 4 infield spots or behind the plate, and that was just a tailor-made ball. Now the big thing is going after Vartuli here, not being afraid of his power. If he drives in a run, one run's not going to win this game.
Good pitch to the inside corner. Vartuli, a .371 hitter, 5 home runs, 37 RBIs. And like E.J. Lavoie, a senior trying to extend his career another weekend. Hits this one in the air, pretty shallow center field. That's Sal Fruscino territory, and Fruscino snags it. So after the first 2 reach, Matt Tulley bounces back to get a double play ball and a pop out and puts a goose egg on the scoreboard. We head to the bottom of the first with no score at Monon Park.
What do we mean when we say UMass is here for a reason? We mean that the 5-campus UMass system is the only public research university that the people of Massachusetts established to create better futures for themselves, but also for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts as a whole. It's a university that educates 73,000 students every day and graduates 17,000 graduates every year. We are the university that educates the workforce of Massachusetts. We're one of the state's 3 major academic research engines: research that saves and improves people's lives, and research that drives the innovation economy of Massachusetts. We provide services and economic opportunity to every region of the Commonwealth. The noted historian David McCullough once said that 2 great concepts, university and Massachusetts, come together in only one place, and we are very aware of how fortunate we are to bear the name, the University of Massachusetts. We recognize that we are truly here for a reason, and that recognition inspires us and drives us every single day.
George Bielizna, the starting pitcher for Western Connecticut State. Let's take a look at the lineup for UMass Boston that he will go up against. For the most part, it's a lineup you'd be familiar for if you're watching the Beacons over the past couple of weeks. The one noticeable change up at the top is Ryan McCormick in at designated hitter with Dan Mantoni, a late arrival as we look for that Beacon starting lineup. Josh Lopez will lead things off. Then it's Ryan McCormick, followed by Kyle Boudris, Chris Fowler, who's hit in 29 consecutive games, Nick Herzog. And there it is, Luke Nagel hitting .429. Searles, Fruscino, and Hughie round out the 9 for the Beacons against George Bielizna, sophomore right-hander. He's a big, tall pitcher, 6'6", 250 pounds from Danbury, Connecticut. 3-1 in 8 games this year, 7 starts, a 4.66 ERA. 48 1/3 innings pitched. He's given up 57 hits. He's walked only 5 in 48 1/3, and he struck out 37.
That's a great stat. Only 5 walks. It means that he's pitching to contact. You're going to give up a higher batting average, but you're not going to give up those big innings unless they really string a ton of hits together. It's huge for a pitcher like this, especially a guy who's not used to working on conference starts. I mean, last year we saw it. The top 3 pitchers were Craig Frobel, Todd Lyons, and then Shane Bierfeld's younger brother. Bierfeld, of course, back in the day was the conference player of the year, and it was like, Actually, Shane Bierfeld is the younger brother. The older pitcher, or the older player, was the player of the year, and I can't quite remember his name.
What do we keep you around for, Seth?
Well, you know what? That's the beauty of the internet. I'll give you that in an inning or two. But it's very interesting when you see these younger guys pitching in conference play, how they attack hitters, and he's doing a great job here, throwing strikes, trusting his defense. That's the biggest thing you can do, and it not only helps to throw strikes, but it keeps the defense on their toes when you know that you're not going to see a ton of balls, a ton of walks where it slows down half innings.
Still a ball and 2 strikes to Lopez, and there's a called strike 3. Josh Lopez goes down looking.
Josh has struggled this week. I think he'd be the first to admit his batting average has dipped from about 400 to
363 coming into today.
And a big part of it is just figuring out that approach. Little changes. We're going to see a pinch hitter before. So Ryan McCormick does not see the field.
Yeah, tough day for Ryan McCormick. Gets the start, but does not even see the field as Dan Mantoni takes his spot. Must mean Mantoni's presentation finished a little earlier than expected, which could be very good, or could mean it went very, very quickly.
You know, with the amount of times that I've spent seeing Dan...
We're assuming it's very, very good.
Yeah, Dan and Julia work.
Yep.
I doubt they did poor work. But you know what, also... he's a senior. It's senior day. You got to use your seniors.
Dan Mantoni takes a first pitch breaking ball for a strike. Now, of course, he did not get to go through batting practice. He got here about 10 minutes ago, started stretching. But he's coming off a 3-hit day yesterday. Nubs this one on the ground, right back to Bielizna. Underhanded 1-3 flip. There are 2 quick outs. Defense for Western Connecticut State. Trey Gauze in left, Cleet LaRusso in center, Kyle McLean in right. It's Joe Daigle at third base, E.J. Lavoie at short, Bill Bacetto at second, Frank Vartuli plays first base, Zach Sager is the catcher, and of course on the mound, George Bielizna.
Slightly different looking lineup from a year ago, but the key pieces are still there.
Boudreaux strikes it, Lavoie's there, sliding to a knee and throws it on a dime. Smooth play by E.J. Lavoie, and George Bielizna puts together a blistering 1-2-3. Bottom of the first, on to the second we go in Beaconville, no score.
UMass Boston was my first choice because when I came to the campus, I saw that there was a lot of diversity. There's a lot of people. Here there is a lot of international students, so it's really cool to meet people from different countries, different parts of the world. I'm Julia Murphy. I'm from Canton, Massachusetts.
I'm Olivia Murphy. I'm from Canton, Massachusetts.
We're sisters.
We're sisters.
I play volleyball and she plays basketball. Here they have a freshman success community. So each major has their own community that you can join as a freshman, and you take classes with them, you do study groups with them. So it was really helpful getting to know people in your major right away.
So in health exercise sciences, we have an internship at the end, so it's so much better to have like an advisor helping you out, like telling you which classes to choose.
Back at Moden Park with Seth Orensky, Bill Spalding. Let's take a look around Beaconville. It's a busy day. Postseason action underway for most of the sports so far throughout the Little East Conference. Baseball just wrapping up the regular season today with the Beacons and Western Connecticut State. As we look around Beaconville, Seth, the first note is UMass Boston softball ahead 3-1 in its Little East Conference tournament game.
Yeah, you see those question marks. That's because it all depends on this game. If they win this game, they play 4 hours from now against number 1 Plymouth. If they lose, they would play Eastern Connecticut State. But a good start. A couple of RBI hits from Roxanne Vento and Caitlin Morris. And let's not forget the other teams here on campus. Tennis is playing a home match out in Weymouth.
Here's a chopper hit to short. Hughie charging, throws it across. Good pickup by Fowler, and that retires Kyle McLean on one pitch. Tennis down at the Weymouth Club, and lacrosse hosts a playoff game just behind us. It's lax after hours tonight at UMass Boston, an 8 p.m. start for their Little East Conference game.
Yeah, we'll see how much of that game we can see. We're certain that we're going to see part of it, as Game 2 will start about 40 minutes after Game 1 because of the Senior Day ceremony in between games. But either way, it should be a very good day on campus. The Beacon's hoping for a lot of W's.
Batter is Zach Pirro, and he takes high and outside. And, of course, this doubleheader to 9-inning games here to wrap up the Little East, not like some conferences that would either play 2 7s or a 9 and a 7 in a doubleheader. Pirro nubs it foul. Pirro's 10 for 24 in his freshman season, has a home run and 7 RBIs. Western Connecticut State has a huge roster, but they don't travel everybody. There are 8 players who scratched today, almost all of them freshmen, but Piro as a freshman has cracked the traveling squad and now cracked the starting lineup.
Well, I think part of that is academics, Bill. You have to take that into account. Some people can't miss classes. Dan Mantoni couldn't miss that presentation. That's why he wasn't in the original starting lineup.
If this was a road game, Dan Mantoni likely wouldn't have made the trip.
No, he might have been able to hop in his car, and he would have been there for maybe game 2.
First strikeout for Matt Tulley as he catches Piro on a breaking ball to the outside corner.
Bill, we talked about it off air. Western had a phenomenal chance, hit by pitch, walk, 2 on, no outs, and as soon as you saw Matt Tulley get that double play ball, he settled in. That might be the best chance Western gets if he's as effective as he was last Saturday. You have to take advantage against good pitchers, and Matt is one of the best. He was named one of the top 5 D3 players who could be a draft prospect. Former D1 pitcher, has great speed, great off speed. This is a guy you have to take your chances when you get them, and Western, couple of weak outs in the double play ball, they now have to really try to manufacture here, as I don't think we're going to see the wildness we saw in the first continue on in the second and on.
1-1 to Zach Sager, who's a .354 hitter. Swings through a high fastball. 1-2. Looks like he, on the follow-through, Sager clips Searles. You mentioned just getting to a pitcher early, and there's a reason that's conventional wisdom. Numbers tend to back it up. You were talking off the air about an article you saw today that had Yu Darvish's numbers and how much better they get from the first batter of the game to the rest of the first inning, and then from the rest of the first inning compared to the rest of the game.
Well, you have the pitcher settling in, you have the defense settling in, and as a hitter, a lot of times you see that first hitter either they're very focused on taking the first pitch, which is conventional wisdom, but some of them are, I'm going to get a fastball with the first pitch. He wants to see a strike. I'm going to swing at the first pitch and hopefully be able to drive it and get on.
Sager fouls one back. Count stays at 1-2. Sager's a junior. Again, hitting at .354 on this season with 10 RBIs. Out of Trumbull, Connecticut. Takes a fastball high, of course. On the baseball diamond, Trumbull known for its magical Little League World Series run in the early 90s when Chris Drury was the starting pitcher, the future NHL player. They took down, at the time, the powerhouses from Taiwan in the Little League World Series championship.
Your knowledge is infinite. I mean, I knew that Chris Drury was from Connecticut. I knew that he was in the Little League World Series. I also knew that he went to my alma mater, Boston University, but I did not know it was Trumbull, and I certainly could not have told you it was Taiwan.
Grew up not all that far from Williamsport, went there 16 years in a row, so I think I've cheated a little bit.
I'm very jealous of that fact.
2-ball, 2-strike count to Sager, and he swings through a fastball. It's a 3-up, 3-down inning for Matt Tulley, who's retired the last 5 he's faced since allowing the first 2 to reach. So he's starting to roll, but on the other side, Beacons will look for their first base runner as we head to the bottom of the second. No score in Boston. We return to Monin Park, bottom of inning number 2, game 1 of a season-ending doubleheader, well, at least the regular season, between UMass Boston and Western Connecticut State. Beacons are guaranteed to be in the conference tournament. 1 win guarantees them the number 2 seed. They can finish no higher than second, no lower than third. Meanwhile, Western Connecticut State needs 2 wins today over UMass Boston, and on top of that, needs losses from some of the other teams in the running. Particularly, they need a loss
from Plymouth State.
No, they need a win from Plymouth State over Rhode Island College in the second game of that doubleheader to give them an opportunity. You just saw the numbers again on George Bielizna. maybe different than if you judge a book by its cover. He's 6'6", 250 pounds. You'd expect him to be a flamethrower who's maybe a little bit wild. First pitch to Chris Fowler is low. Instead, he is not an overpowering pitcher so far, at least numbers-wise this season, but has walked only 5 in now about 49 innings of work.
Well, just from looking at him to start this at bat, the interesting thing about George is he's not coming from an over-the-head angle. He's coming not quite sidearm, but from below. It's a little bit difficult to see it as that pitch comes in on the left-handed batters.
Chris Fowler is hitting 29 consecutive games. Homered yesterday. His 1 hit on the day. Consecutive games hitting streak record at UMass Boston is 34 games. Steve Coffey set the mark. Fowler fouls this one off. So had a couple close calls this week. Monday night against Endicott, it took a deep triple to center to extend the streak. Yesterday, a 1-for-5 day, but that one was loud, a home run, and he had 3 RBIs as well.
The great thing about Chris is whenever he talks about the hitting streak, it's a focus on as long as the team's winning, then the hitting streak is just a nice addition. A lot of these guys recognizing how close they came last year. If you look at the Beacons tournament run, they were 2-0 in the NCAA Regionals playing St. John Fisher leading into the 8th. Blew it in the 8th. The bullpen couldn't come through. If they were 3-0, they would have needed one more win. Instead, they faded and fell at 2-2. This team knows what it takes, and that's a big focus on that is it's not about me. It's about the team. I'll reach on an error, a hit by pitch, a wild pitch, a strike 3 that's dropped, whatever it is. I want this team to go far, and that's so helpful when it comes to the coaching staff not having to focus about a me attitude.
Nick Herzog leans into a fastball, and he'll reach on a hit by pitch after Fowler had grounded out to Basetto. So 1 out base runner for the Beacons here in the bottom of the 2nd. First base runner today for UMass Boston, which means we'll see Bielizna out of the stretch for the first time, and he'll be facing the hottest hitter on the Beacons right now, and that's including a guy who's riding a 29-game hit streak. Luke Nagel hitting 14 for 21, 667 over his last 6 games.
And hit his first home run of the season yesterday. The Beacons were hoping that Anthony Searles would get hot to add some pop in the middle of the order and keep the good juices flowing from 2 to 4 and keep that going lower in the lineup. Well, instead it's been Nagel with Searles starting to heat up. Well, Luke Nagel is red hot, and it's just been a great approach, taking it to the gaps. He's not trying to pull it every time.
Nagel pops this one foul territory. Long run for Daigle, and he's out of place. Luke Nagel started in left field about 3.5 weeks ago now, his first start out there. Since that move, Beacons are 15-2, and of course riding a 10-game winning streak coming into this doubleheader to end the regular season.
And Bill, the biggest thing about Luke is he's the vocal leader amongst these 4 seniors. He's the guy that the younger underclassmen look to provide some of those fiery speeches. It's difficult for a guy who's not seeing the field to be that vocal leader, and instead, with him on the field, he's showing it.
And he keeps raking, puts it into the gap for a double. Herzog stops at third. 15 for his last 22, another extra base hit for Nagel.
And it's as simple as that. It's not a walk, but the hit by pitch puts a runner aboard, and you've got a couple of extra base hitting machines right behind Herzog and Nagel, and now Searles. Searles is a guy who's hitting 170, but Bill, even this week we've seen Anthony hit the ball harder than he has all season long, including a big home run the other night on Monday to tie the game against Endicott.
And with only 1 out in the infield back, you expect him as a senior to be able to handle the bat and get a run home. Searles takes strike 1. You mentioned only hitting 171, but does have 13 RBIs. He leads the team with 31 walks this season, so his on-base percentage is .362. Ground ball hit to short. That'll score a run. Lavoie's long throw just in time to get Searles by a half a step. But Anthony Searles does the job on the ground out, scoring Herzog. Beacons lead 1-0 in the bottom of the 2nd.
And that's a pair of upperclassmen making good plays. Searles just content to hit it knowing that Lavoie's not going to go home. If that ball had gotten to, if Daigle had cut it off, it might have been a play at the plate. But also, Lavoie took his time. He made the throw. Brendan Eichelbout's out there. I think Searles might have been safe. If we can take a look at that replay, it'll be interesting. It's a bang-bang play. I don't disagree with the umpire, as we'll have to slow it down when we do get there. But just a nice play from both players, and now it comes down to Sal Frascino trying to put up a crooked number in this half inning.
Well, 2 down, bottom 2, UMass Boston leading 1-0. Sal Frascino, the hitter, a junior batting at .245. Sprays this one foul. Frashino playing against one of his hometown teams is Sal Frashino out of Derby, Connecticut, which is only about an hour or so east of Danbury.
Let's take a look at this replay real quick as the umpire was slowing play down a little bit. If we can get it to you after this pitch, it's going to be interesting. I really think Anthony might have beaten the ball to the bag or gotten there at the same time.
Frashino takes a called strike, and here comes a look back to that close play that did score a run.
So our camera moves over just at the right time, I believe, and here it comes.
It's close.
It's very close.
Yep. 0-2, just off the plate away.
Speaking
and
of
of course,
very
we
close,
have the benefit of very, very, very slow replay, whereas umpires watching it in live speed, hard to debate that one way or another.
Will Bauer on the base path today, with Rick Del Vecchio behind the plate.
1-2. Frashino lines it to right field. That's in for a base hit. Nagel rounds third. The throw from McLean. Cut off. It's an RBI single for Sal Frashino. 2-0 Beacons.
Sal's another guy who started to heat up a little bit with the bat. His outfield defense is phenomenal, but between him and Danny Brown, the big question was which guy would hit a little bit better to provide some offense in that 8 spot, and Sal has really seen his batting average rise over the past 3 or 4 games.
Now here comes Charlie Hughey hitting at .231 with a home run and 21 RBIs out of the 9 spot. Takes a called strike from Bielizna. Now, Bielizna's challenging with strikes in this inning. The Beacons have started to come through and provide some base hits. Frashino running, hit and run, liner falling quickly to right field and down in front of McLean. Frashino goes first to third, throw behind, back to first, is in time to get Charlie Hughey. So he's picked off as Tulley snuck behind him. And that ends the Beacon threat, but not before UMass Boston scores 2 runs. They do it on 3 hits, sends us to the 3rd with UMass Boston leading 2-0.
UMass is very public service focused, and it piqued my interest, and I started doing more research on it. I'm very focused on what can I do to make the world around me a better place. My name is Lydia Grasso. I'm a junior at UMass Boston studying sociology and minoring in human rights. Because I won the Chancellor Scholarship at UMass, it allowed me to go to Cambodia. I was working at the Sihanouk Hospital Center of Hope. I was in the place of something horrible that had happened. I could either go home and kind of forget about that experience and kind of block it out, or I could do something so that things like that never happened again. UMass provides me with opportunities that I wouldn't get anywhere else and gives me a global perspective in a public setting. I definitely transformed at UMass.
Here's Matt Tulley, who's retired 5 in a row, and he's done it efficiently. He's gotten 6 outs against the last 5 batters he's faced. That's after he started the game with a hit by pitch and a walk. Got E.J. Lavoie to ground into a double play. Frank Bartulli to pop out to end that first inning. And that got him rolling. A 1-2-3 second. He'll face 8, 9, and 1 in the order. And now Seth Orensky, he is staked to a lead for the first time today. UMass Boston 2, Western Connecticut State nothing. A win in Game 1 of this doubleheader would guarantee the Beacons the number 2 seed in the Little East tournament and would eliminate Western Connecticut State from tournament contention. First pitch swinging, Daigle pounds it to third. Boudris is there, low throw, and that's picked up by Fowler, 1 down.
I was going to comment after the Sal Frashino play that the Beacons were being aggressive with their base running, testing Western. That's exactly what you want to see. Obviously, Charlie Hughey getting thrown out behind the play, but I think that's what Western needs to do if they can get base runners. But to get base runners, they might have to get creative. Maybe put down a bunt here if you see the infielders back, or try some different kind of plays because Tulley, once he settles in, as he showed last Saturday against Plymouth State, He's one of the more difficult pitchers in the conference to hit against. Struggled early on in the season, maybe trying to do a bit too much coming off an injury, but he's settled in. And while I wouldn't call him the Beacons' ace, I would call him part of a four-headed monster at the top of the Beacons pitching rotation with Fernando Burgos, Dan Mantoni, and Joey Rogers all putting out great numbers. Mantoni's the ace. He's the guy the Beacons are going to throw in that first game of the LEC tournament, most likely, depending on the matchup. But Tulley's the guy most teams don't want to face.
It's the strikeout of Gauze, his third strikeout in the last 4 batters. He's retired 7 in a row as the lineup turns back over to Cleet LaRusso.
And you don't want to face him because of that fastball.
Yep.
A low 90s fastball that can get up into the mid-90s, the slider to put you off balance a little bit. His stuff is phenomenal, and he's starting to really show why he was as highly of a touted player coming out of high school as he was.
First pitch to LaRusso, a ball, and that's why looking ahead, even though the Beacons won't have home field advantage, you feel very good about their chances in the conference tournament because they're even deeper as a pitching staff this year. Ball low to LaRusso when you have starters like Mantoni and Tulley, add in some of the weekday starters like a Fernando Burgos. This is fouled back to the screen. Joey Rogers pitched really well this season. Josh Gerson just put together a good start recently for the Beacons. And then on top of that, you have bullpen guys like Kaufman and Tramondoza. You can pitch a few innings when need be. And you even have depth bullpen guys who have been pitching well this year. Seem to have the pitching depth that's set up for 3, 4, or 5 games over a 4-day stretch.
Well, Bill, the big thing last year was the Beacons knew who their top 3 starters was. When it got to Game 4, they were hoping it would be a championship game in either of the tournaments they played, and it wasn't. They didn't know who they were going to throw. They threw Brian Kaufman in that 17-12 loss. The rain affected the game. Nobody on the pitching mound was able to get good footing. And then they threw Sal Frascino in Game 4 of the regional tournament. This year they know it's going to be Joey Rogers, and they also know who's going to pitch 5 and maybe 6.
Hugie on the run beats Cleet LaRusso. It's another 1-2-3 inning for Matt Tulley, who's retired 8 in a row. 2-0 UMass Boston as we head to the bottom of the third here on the Beacons Broadcast Network.
Psychology is about understanding the individual and understanding the mind. The main reason why I want to combine psychology and business degrees is because I want to understand the business decisions that are made. I'm Nurçin Çelebi. I'm from Turkey originally. I'm a senior at the 5-year BA to MBA program at UMass Boston. I think in management, the biggest mistake you can make is to not listen. So I want to be able to step into a company and say, here's what you're doing now, and here's how you can improve it. I moved here when I was 16 for high school. Moving from Turkey, it was a rough journey for me because when you don't really speak the language that well, and when you don't really fit in the crowd, it's very easy to disappear. But I decided not to give up, and UMass helped me. I wanted to be able to improve myself. I wanted to be able to try new things, and I think UMass gave me a really good head start on that.
To the bottom of the third we go, and so far it's been efficient work for George Bielizna, but he's still given up 2 runs on 3 hits. All came back in the second inning, and he trails 2-0 along with his Western Connecticut State teammates in Game 1 of this doubleheader. With Sense Thorensky, I'm Bill Spalding. Home plate umpire just doing some housekeeping. There were the Beacons who were in the hole, and then in the even deeper hole with Fowler and Mantoni sitting just outside the dugout.
Just hanging out.
And Josh Lopez watches ball 1. So, of course, you can only have your on-deck batter Mantoni out there. Fowler was scattered back to the dugout, as was Nick Herzog. There's a strike from Bielizna, sophomore pitcher from Danbury, Connecticut, who works very quickly. He's already coming back again. And there's a ball.
I think it's big for Bielizna right here to get a scoreless inning. You're facing the top of the order. You're already down 2-0. Give your hitters a chance. Keep this game within reach, knowing that this game is a must-win if you're going to get into the LEC tournament.
Lopez bloops one down right. It skips past McLean, and now Josh Lopez is off and running. He dives into second, single and an error.
Yeah, Kyle McLean, the first time we've seen the man whose namesake was in Die Hard, and McLean not quite able to make the play out there. Good job by Lopez looking up the whole way to easily take second.
Brings up Dan Mantoni, who hit a dribbler back to first base. Now, of course, Beacon's looking for a big day from Dan Mantoni, but at the end of the day, getting his big presentation out of the way, it's a good day for Dan, no matter how it shakes out today.
Absolutely. Dan is a guy who's playing in his 160th career game coming into this one.
Lavoith's throw to first in time. Lopez advances to third. Josh Lopez taking chances out there on the base pass. Sets up an RBI opportunity for Kyle Boudris.
That's more of the good base running we saw in the second inning. Be aggressive. Lopez did a good job there, recognizing that the throw was going to be made sure to wait until the throw had been made, and then knew that his speed was probably going to beat the return throw down to first base.
UMass Boston's won 10 consecutive games. They've won most of them by lopsided margins. Their most recent win, 9-5 yesterday against Amherst. The day before, maybe the most impressive win so far if you just look purely based on numbers. Salve Regina, who at the time was the #1 ranked team in the region, UMass Boston handled them 17-6.
Well, Bill, you've done 2 of the 3 games this week. The Beacons have done it for the most part with big innings.
Yep.
UMass Boston putting the game away by scoring not 1 run an inning, but 2, 3, or 4, and that makes it difficult to come back when the Beacons during this entire 10-game win streak have given up 15, maybe 20 total runs during that span.
In the 5th, 6th, and 7th inning of the game against Salve Regina, UMass Boston scored 12 runs, 3 in the 5th, 3 in the 6th, and 6 in the 7th. 0-2 count to Boudris, trying to get a run home with the infield back. Boudris, fly ball, medium deep left, Gauze going over, Lopez tagging, he heads home, and Gauze's throw won't even make it to the plate. Sacrifice fly for Kyle Boudris, another professional at bat for a Beacons batter.
Yeah, it goes as an unearned run because of the error out there by the right fielder, most likely, unless Fowler can get a hit. But aggressive base running there. You turn a single into runner at second, advances on the grounder to third, and then Boudris knows that if he hits that ball anywhere but very shallow in any of the 3 outfield spots, that Lopez, with his speed, is easily going to score.
Chris Fowler takes his strike. With that 29-game hitting streak, Chris Fowler brings a .400 batting average into this game, 6 homers, 44 RBIs. Already 0 for 1 and now down in the count, 0-2. He was surprised by that breaking ball.
Yeah, I think some of the batters in the Beacons lineup are still trying to settle in. This Bielizna, a guy who's throwing mostly off speed, you don't expect that in conference. You expect to see some power pitchers, and it's caused some of the Beacons to struggle.
Fowler serves this one to left, up into the jet stream toward the monster. It bangs off the top of the wall, and Chris Fowler is hit in 30 straight games. He has that opposite way power, a double for Fowler, 4 games away from tying Steve Coffey for the longest hit streak at UMass Boston.
If that ball is a little bit to the right, or maybe 10 feet to the left, it's probably out of there. That's one of the more difficult places to hit it out just because you're hitting it so close to center field. And Fowler has done it throughout the entire hit streak. He's not afraid to go the opposite way. There's so much space out there. And just a beautiful piece of hitting to put another runner in scoring position here for a guy who has a little bit of pop himself in Nick Herzog.
Nick Herzog was hit by a pitch, which was the first Beacon to reach base back in the second. That started a 2-run rally. Up here with an 0 for 0 line today, but a run scored. Takes a backdoor breaking ball for strike 1. Herzog this season hitting at .282, 2 home runs, 26 RBIs.
This sophomore class has been really impressive. Nick didn't get a lot of chances last year, but has stepped into a starting role and has been phenomenal starting every day.
Nubs this back to the mound. Bielizna gobbles it up. Throw a little wide, but Tulley tap danced on the base to put it away and end the inning. Beacons add another run after 3. UMass Boston 3 and Western Connecticut State nothing.
Celebrate the soggy shoes and the slow starts. Celebrate the lessons learned along the way. These are the wins. Not the shiny, nail-biting kind. These are the last a lifetime kind.
3-0 UMass Boston leads in Game 1 of a regular season-ending doubleheader against Western Connecticut State. For the play-by-play here in the 4th, Seth Arinsky.
Thank you very much, Bill. And while we've got a moment, we'll take a look around the rest of the conference. A little bit more important for Western than it is for UMass Boston. And we'll take a look at that Plymouth Rhode Island College score. That's the one that matters. If Rhode Island College wins that game, then Western is eliminated no matter the results, and they're up 5-2 in the fifth. So Western needs a comeback there. Southern Maine trails in game 2. That's interesting. Southern Maine one spot ahead of the Beacons in the regional rankings. Be difficult to pass them, but a loss here, a couple losses there. Who knows? The Beacons win the LEC tournament championship next week. You'd expect both teams to get in, but we saw last year Southern Maine went 0-2 as the number 1 seed. The Beacons went 2-2 with a win over Southern Maine, and that was the difference in who got the at-large bid.
Would be interesting to see if Southern Maine has its usual lineup here in Game 2, or if after they clinched the regular season championship, maybe got some of their depth guys in for Game 2.
Senior day up there,
Yep.
So who knows? Maybe there's a couple of seniors who are looking to get rare appearances. The good news for the Beacons is their seniors are their top players. They're everyday guys, as Matt Tulley floats one in a bit high there for ball 1 to Bill Bassetto, who's one of the 2 Western players who have reached a walk to put 2 on and no outs in the first. Rips one, fouled on the left field line. That one's going to get past the track and right into the middle of warm-ups as BC High has a high school lacrosse game before the 8 o'clock start for the Beacons men's lacrosse team, who takes on Plymouth State University.
Not sure who they're playing over there. My guess is that's probably Zavarian Brothers with the navy blue and gold.
1-1 shot back off the top of the glove of Tulley. Difficult play for Hughie, and we'll see the scoring on that one. They're going to give it a hit,
Yep.
And that's the first of the game for Western. Bill, you said that you thought there was a chance. I was in agreement, and that might be the way you get hits against Tulley today. Difficult play as he knocked that one down. He was the only guy who was going to have a chance at Bassetto over there at first base.
Well, once he got settled in after that hit by pitch in the walk, he'd retired 8 in a row and did it in a dominating fashion with 3 strikeouts mixed in, no solid contact. So you just kind of had the feeling this would be a great day for him on senior day. Still can be, a little bouncer notwithstanding.
Now it's the middle of the lineup, and these are the guys you want up as E.J. Lavoie takes a first pitch fastball for strike 1.
Seth, we talked a lot about the power that Tulley has with that right arm, but the location's just as important. It was a perfect spot there with that fastball to Lavoie, knee-high outside corner. At this level, good hitters like E.J. Lavoie, they can hit a 93-mile-an-hour fastball that catches a lot of the plate, but there aren't many who can hit a 93-mile-an-hour fastball at the knees on the outside corner.
Another ball chopped to the left side, chance for 2. Boudris finds Lopez, throw across. E.J. Lavoie is 0 for 2 with a pair of double plays. This one 5-4-3, and there's no one on for Frank Vartuli.
E.J. Lavoie is senior in his last doubleheader ever, and he's hit better than 400 in his senior season, but it's close. He's at 404, so he needs to have a decent day today to stay above 400 as a senior. You know that's something he's shooting for. Beacon infield defense has played really well, and part of the reason why is Tulley's keeping them engaged with his quick work.
Yeah, both pitchers heading into this 4th inning on 40 pitches. First pitch bounced over to Hughie, picks it up on a hop throw across. It's off the bag, and I believe that that's going to go as an E6 as Fowler couldn't get the tag on, pulled off the bag. Hughie made the first part look so easy, but maybe a little bit lackadaisical, and that's the first error on the Beacons, as there's now a runner on first with 2 down for Kyle McLean.
I think Hughie maybe rushed it a little bit, not necessarily realizing the speed of the runner Vartuli there. He had time to set his feet and make the throw. You know, it's not a huge deal at this point in the game if Tulley comes back and gets the next batter, but what it does do is add some pitches to that pitch count. He would have been at 46 pitches through 4 innings if he had gotten that out there, and now has to face at least one more batter if you're thinking long term.
The good news, Bill, is that having already played 3 games in 3 days, the Beacons don't have any games until next Wednesday. So you can use a guy who's available today, pitch them maybe 2 innings or 3 innings instead of just the 1, and not have to worry about having them available for their next game.
Yeah, you'd think ideally, obviously you always ideally go into a game hoping you can get a starter go 7 innings, but if you can get both Tulley and Mantoni 6 or 7 innings today, that would set up nicely for the back end of the Beacon bullpen.
0-2 is a little bit low to McLean. 1-2 now with 2 down, as Western has had 2 base runners on in the inning for the second time today. Yeah, the big thing is this is a tune-up for the conference tournament, so you want Tulley to not only go 6 or 7 innings, but go in or end his outing feeling good. So maybe you pull a guy a little bit earlier than you would just to avoid having them run into trouble and maybe have some second guesses coming off of the start. Happened a little bit last night. Joey Rogers was just cruising along after a first inning in which he gave up a lot of base runners, gave up a single run against Amherst. Ended up giving up 4 runs in the 8th. A couple of those were inherited runners that were allowed to score, but I'm sure Rogers, who's such a student of the game, is going to be able to wipe it away for a potential start in the LEC tournament.
And his start was similar to what we said when Western Connecticut State missed their chances in the first inning today. They did get to Amherst yesterday in that first inning, but once he settled in, it was just an efficient, strong performance for the next 6 innings.
And it helps the batters when they know that their pitching staff is going to limit the runs and vice versa. So that one just misses maybe a little bit on the outside corner high. Count runs full with 2 down.
Means obviously Bartuli will get the head start over at first. And mention the extra pitches. This will be a 7th extra pitch Tully's had to throw this inning after an error.
Yeah, Charlie might have to grab him a snack after the inning. 3-2, hits softly over to Boudreaux, has plenty of time, picks it, scoops it, throws across, and Western is retired in the 4th. 2 base runners, but nothing to show for it. We head to the bottom of the 4th. The Beacons will bring up 6, 7, 8 as they look to tack on a few more runs.
Something I discovered in myself is that if I have a goal, then I can accomplish it.
It's a well-rounded experience.
At a Division III school, you primarily a student athlete, so the school is really shaped around you developing yourself as a complete individual.
It helps a lot that you have a family with your team that can guide you.
Bottom of the 4th, we see George Bielizna. He's thrown 40 pitches, 34 for strikes through the first 3 innings. And Bill, as a hitter, what kind of approach are you may be looking for this second or third time around against a guy you know is going to be pounding the zone?
Yeah, you go up there expecting to see a good pitch and expecting to swing. If it sounds weird, George Bielizna might be throwing too many strikes right now. There's a little bit to be said about being effectively wild, and that's not that you want to start walking hitters, but just the fact that you're not so predictable that every pitch is going to be a strike that the Beacons can go up there really looking for something.
The good thing is that he's really pounding the corners.
Yep,
he's
that being said, if you're going to be throwing 34 out of 40 pitches for strikes, you better be throwing them to the corners.
Found the outside corner with that first pitch. Nagel goes a little bit out of the zone to swing at the second pitch, and he'll have one end up on maybe the pit, maybe the field over there to our left. 0-2 to Nagel, who had a double and scored back in the second inning. 0-2 pitch. That one's hit over to the right side. Basetto has tons of time, and a high throw gets over there to Bartuli in plenty of time for the first out of the bottom of the 4th.
Yeah, you really credit what you've seen from Bielizna and the way he's working. He's kind of had a little bit of tough luck to end up with the 3 runs allowed. He hit a batter accidentally back in the 2nd that came around to haunt him. Last inning, there was the error that moved a runner around, a sacrifice fly, only 1 hard hit ball. It was Fowler's double off the wall. So he's pitched pretty well. He's thrown a lot of strikes, and if you're a fielder, you love playing behind him because he works so quickly.
Yeah, we commented on it all last season with Fernando Burgos, a guy who pitches extremely quickly, throws a lot of strikes, didn't give up a lot of walks, and we're seeing more of the same from Bielizna, who paints the outside corner 0-2.
And if it's possible, I think Bielizna works even faster than Burgos because out of the stretch, Burgos slows a bit. Even out of the stretch, Bielizna has been working really quickly.
Breaking ball popped up on the right side. Camping under it is Bartuli, and Bartuli fights the sun a little bit to make the play. 2 quick outs here. We're watching the anti-Steve Traxel.
I literally was just going to say that. That was going to be my next line. The fact that 2 of us in our mid-20s are talking about a guy who retired, 9 years ago at this point, just tells you how memorable Steve Traxel's performances were.
Well, ESPN back in the day did a great job on SportsCenter of tracking him, but I was also a Chicago Cubs fan when Traxel was on the team, and he was the guy you didn't want to see pitch because those games would go way past your bedtime. So that strike zone might have been adjusted a little bit there as Bielizna gets a little bit past the outside corner for strike 1 on Frashino.
When you're throwing a lot of strikes, you start to get the calls.
Popped up out to left. Gauze is under in plenty of time. That was an extremely quick inning. As what do we got for pitches here on Bielizna through 4?
So he had 40 coming in. I think he had 6 that inning, so 46 pitches. We'll get the official number for you when we come back.
What separates UMass Boston from other schools is the fact that a large percentage of students commute. For me, it takes 2 hours each day to go to and from school, but every second has been worth it because the students that come here are serious about learning, they value their education, and understand where it'll take them in the future. This is what UMass Boston means to me.
We've played 4 innings in 50 minutes, and as I knock on wood, I hope I didn't just jinx it.
You don't say things
But
like that.
when you have wood right in front of you, it helps a little bit.
You're still tempting fate there.
Well, you know what? Some people don't believe in the broadcaster's curse. I personally believe in the broadcaster's curse.
I don't really, but I still know enough to not say how fast the game is going.
Well, it's not a no-hitter. We got that out of the way in the last half inning. We're in the top of the 5th. Western will bring up Zach Pirro, Zach Sager, and Joe Daigle as they face Matt Tulley for the second time. And a big part of this is it's not just the second time they faced him. It's the first time that Tulley has pitched this year. And I think when you're facing these conference teams, especially when you head into the conference tournament, the Beacons saw some of Western's pitchers 5 or 6 times. Makes it a lot more difficult when you're going in blind or just with a scouting report that you haven't seen in person.
As a senior transfer, every game he pitches this year, this is his 10th game of the season, he's looking at a team that's brand new. I'll be interested to see how quickly he bounces back this inning because that last inning was so fast. He only had about 2 to 3 minutes on the bench to recollect himself and come back out after a somewhat laborious 14-pitch inning last inning.
First pitch, swing and a miss, a breaking ball that Pirro was way out in front of. Pirro struck out looking in the second, was followed by Sager, who struck out swinging. 2 of the 3 strikeouts for Tulley through his first 4 innings of work.
Well, another reason why Tulley's so tough is that you come in, you're geared for that low 90s fastball, and then he drops a changeup like that and makes you swing way out in front like Pirro did on the first pitch. That's a really tough matchup.
The 0-2 coming to the designated hitter. A little bit low, 1-2, as Tulley tried to get him to chase a pitch that was low and maybe a bit outside the zone. Pirro, one of the guys who was not on last year's team that made a run to the championship game as a 6th seed. So he flares that one out to left. It's going to stay up there for Nagel, and it's a quick first out as Nagel, who we questioned how he would do out there in left, continues to impress. He makes the plays that he's supposed to. And with a hot bat like that, that's more than enough.
Yeah, and playing left field here at Monin, while there are some challenges with judging how the ball is going to bounce off the wall, there isn't all that much ground to cover. So it might be the easiest transition for someone who's a natural infielder to go play in the outfield there.
First pitch to Sager is popped up foul. Out of play there as it gets off the top of the dugout.
I like to say it all the time. If Manny Ramirez could play left field at Fenway Park, I think anyone with a glove can play left field at Fenway Park.
Well, and the other big difference is that there's a chain link fence behind the left field rather than a hard wall. So it makes some of the bounces and the caroms coming off the monster even easier here because you're not going to get some of those really odd bounces where outfielders just saw it go right over their head back towards the infield at Fenway. 1-1 to Sagers, hit softly over to Boudris, picks it up, throws in plenty of time, and another quick out as Tulley has not allowed a base runner to reach from 5 through 9 thus far for Western Connecticut State.
And still only 1 hit through 4 2/3, coming off a game where he gave up just 2 hits and 6 1/3 last time out. He's been a little bit more economical with his pitches this outing than the last one because he's pitching to a little bit more contact. 3 strikeouts so far through 4 2/3. He had 8 strikeouts and 6 1/3 in his last start, and he's only walked 1.
Breaking ball for strike 1 on the outside corner to Daigle, who grounded out to Boudris, who's been very busy today.
And again, Tulley, like Bielizna, throwing a lot of first pitch strikes, but he's changing speeds.
Off the glove of Tulley, slows it down for Lopez, picks it up on a bounce, and Fowler can't quite handle it. It's going to go as it's going to go as an error. Bill, who do you got over there on the right side?
I think it's got to go on the second baseman. It was a little bit of a wide throw from Lopez, who again rushed his throw. He had plenty of time, didn't have to throw on the run. So Daigle reaches on the E4.
So 2 errors on the Beacons in back-to-back innings. The good news is they've come with 2 down, and Tulley will get to face the 9-hole hitter Trey Gauze, who he struck out swinging for the second out in the third. It's been a bit of a surprise for the Beacons, who have played so defensively. Bunt showed, thrown on to first. Fowler couldn't quite handle the short hop. Otherwise, they might have gotten Daigle. Second time today, Searles has caught a base runner lurking a little bit, and you have to be aggressive, but you can't be aggressive to the point that you're running yourself into outs.
That's the danger of when you miss a bunt, even if it's a bunt for a base hit. So often the batter sees the runner sees the batter square, and they take off.
Ball chopped over to the shortstop, Hughie. He'll go the short way to Lopez, and it's a 4-batter inning here for the Colonials in the 5th. We head to the bottom of the 5th. UMass Boston leads 3-0.
UMass Boston was my first choice because when I came to the campus, I saw that there was a lot of diversity. There's a lot of people. Here there is a lot of international students, so it's really cool to meet people from different countries, different parts of the world. I'm Julia Murphy. I'm from Canton, Massachusetts.
I'm Olivia Murphy. I'm from Canton, Massachusetts.
We're sisters.
We're sisters.
I play volleyball and she plays basketball. Here they have a freshman success community. So each major has their own community that you can join as a freshman, and you take classes with them, you do study groups with them. So it was really helpful getting to know people in your major right away.
So in health exercise sciences, we have an internship at the end, so it's so much.
Charlie Hughie ready to step into the box. The Beacons' 9-hole hitter had a single but got a bit overly aggressive, was thrown behind, and was thrown out for the final out of the second inning. Hughie, the Sandy Hook, Connecticut native, takes a breaking ball on the inside half. The Beacons have a couple of Nutmeg State natives on the roster.
Just in this starting lineup, you have Lopez from the New Haven area, you have Frashino from Derby, and you have Hughie from Sandy Hook.
And, of course, Searles from Shelton.
Yep.
That ball's hit softly over the first baseman, Tulley. Tons of time, and he'll take it himself for the first out of the bottom of the 5th.
So 4 of the 9 in the starting lineup today, and those parts of Connecticut you mentioned are all what you'd consider Western Connecticut. So if they decided to stay as close to home as possible to play their college baseball, they likely would have ended up at West Conn. I'm sure that, at this level, you're oftentimes recruiting a lot of the same people, but particularly these Connecticut players. Coach Sushi from Western Connecticut State, I'm sure, is very familiar with them.
Lopez pops it up in the shallow center. Coming on is LaRusso, and he'll make the play in very shallow center field for another quick out. Just keep emphasizing it, but this game has been very fast thus far.
Don't look now, but Bielizna's retired 6 in a row, and I don't think he's had to throw more than 4 pitches to anybody in those 6.
Going back to our Connecticut point, JT Morin, who would have been the Beacons' Game 2 starter if not for an oblique injury that's put him out for the year, the sophomore, another Connecticut native. And the Beacons also have Kyle Penny, one of their backup catchers from Toland.
By the way, that pitch, the 53rd for Bielizna. He has gotten the last 5 outs on 13 pitches.
Hit softly over to Lavoie. Mantoni a long run and a bouncing throw across. Vartuli with a long stretch. And the Beacons go 1-2-3 for the second consecutive inning.
So, Seth, that is just 15 pitches to get through 2 innings in the 4th and the 5th. What an outing from Bielizna in those middle innings to help keep Western Connecticut State in it.
You know what? If George could throw both games, I'd be very happy. He is a broadcaster's dream. The Beacons lead 3-0 through 5. We'll take a commercial break and then be back with a look around the rest of Beaconville. Quite a few other teams in postseason play.
one of the first undergraduate alumnus to lead this university. I'm very proud of that. I was literally able to transform my life because of the University of Massachusetts, and I want that for every single student that walks through the door.
Top of the sixth, and before we get to the top of the sixth, we'll take a look around the rest of Beaconville. The other teams already in postseason play and looking good thus far. UMass Boston softball in the bottom of the sixth, they lead 3-2 after Dartmouth scored a run in the top half of the inning, but the Beacons threw out a runner at home plate to keep it at 3-2. So Jess Greenspan potentially 3 outs away from keeping the Beacons at 2-0. That second half, we'll find out later. Men's tennis should be underway already against Bridgewater State in the LAC semis, and the men's lacrosse team will be playing tonight at 8 p.m. against Plymouth State. A busy day in Beaconville, but Bill, from a sports information perspective, I can say it's all made better when the teams are successful, and this has been one of the most successful springs, if not the most successful spring in UMass Boston history. First pitch is high there to the leadoff hitter, Cleet LaRusso.
Oh, yeah, a lot of fun teams to cover here at UMass Boston during the spring season. And, you know, once you get to playoff time, everything is that much more exciting.
Well, and certainly with this baseball team, is that one is ripped foul from LaRusso just out ahead. Monin Park makes coming to broadcast a baseball game or watch a baseball game so much more enjoyable.
And on top of that, I think it's going to continue to make this baseball program better and better, because when you can bring recruits to a park like this that looks like Fenway Park, it's a built-in pitch right there.
And the Beacons got a lot of those upperclassmen who we talked about in the starting lineup as LaRusso swings and misses before they had Monin Park actually available. It was the idea of Monin Park.
Yep.
Something that Brendan Igerboth, the Beacons head coach, had to do for years before it actually became a reality. The 1-2 to LaRusso, swung on and missed. 4th strikeout of the game for Tulley, who has allowed just the 6 base runners. 2 hits, rather 1 hit, 2 errors, a hit by pitch and a walk. So 5 base runners through 5 1/3 thus far for a guy who was already named to the D3 baseball team of the week last week.
And, you know, one thing I'm noticing now that I really watch his windup that I think makes him even tougher. He throws hard, but he also has a little bit of a deceptive leg kick at the end from time to time. Not on that pitch. He went with his normal windup, but on the previous pitch, unless he had just slipped, his leg kind of jerked a little bit, which could throw off the timing of the hitter as well.
It's 0-1 to Bill Bassetto, who's reached twice. Rips that one, but right at Kyle Boudris for the second out. And really, when you look at it, Bassetto's the only guy who's had success. He worked a walk in the first and then had a single off the glove of Tulley. So that's a big second out now for E.J. Lavoie.
That honestly might be the hardest hit ball of the day against Tulley, and it's the first time that Bassetto doesn't reach. There have not been many balls struck well at all today. That one and the line drive by Pirro that was caught by Nagel and left.
2 down now for E.J. Lavoie, who can avoid having the infamy of hitting into 3 consecutive double plays. Has not been a great day for E.J. A 6-4-3 double play in the first, a 5-4-3 in the fourth. The 1-0 to E.J. That one's inside, 2-0.
And again, it's important now, not that he might even be thinking about this, but as it looks with the way the day's shaking out, Western Connecticut State's season's going to end today. He came in hitting .404, so for the fact of finishing the year hitting above .400, needs some base hits, and that'll help.
That'll help. A ball that's inside out through the right side. That one goes against the defensive scout. There was a huge hole over there between the first baseman and second baseman. Just the second hit of the day, so I'll take the jinx there. I did say that Matt had given up 2 hits. And there's a 2-out base runner here for Frank Bartuli, who has reached once on an error by the shortstop Hughie and also flown out to center to end the first.
That approach shows you why Lavoie is flirting with .400 this year. Has the ability to just flick the pitch into the outfield where there's a hole on top of his ability to hit gap to gap.
Tulley's first pitch bounces up there, and Searles, as he's done all day when there's base runners on, immediately hops up trying to limit the running game against Tulley, who's not the easiest guy to run against. So 1-0, 2 down here in the top of the 6th. 1-0 pitch, breaking ball, a half-hearted swing, and it's 1-1. Haven't seen Western attempt a stolen base, but at the same point, they haven't had that many base runners on.
They don't steal a whole lot of bases, only 37 stolen bases all season, though Lavoie is second on the team with 6 steals. Situation where you'd think about running with 2 outs to get into scoring position, but at the same time, down 3, do you want to take the bat out of Artuli's hands when he has the ability to hit for power and possibly make it a 1-run game if he squares something up?
Tulley misses high, 2-1. And I 100% agree with you. If you're going to produce some runs here, you don't want to run into an out. And Bartuli's got all the power in the world to pop this one out over the monster. He's got a very awkward batting stance with the front elbow well over the plate. And it's 2-2 now.
Yeah, and until he's about to swing, he's got the bat almost pointed straight down at the ground behind his back. But you'll notice no matter what your stance looks like, almost every good hitter has his hands in the same spot by the time it gets to actually starting the swing.
Bill Spalding, expert play-by-play guy, phenomenal color commentators. That one just misses. Beacons thought it was strike 3. You saw Hughie trotting in, and the count runs full.
I think that was a good call. We've got a good line here compared to the angle Charlie Hughie's looking at. I think that missed inside a bit.
Hey, every little thing. Hughie trying to sell it. Matt Tulley was walking off. And the Beacon softball team is heading to the championship play-in game. So they win over UMass Dartmouth 3-2, and the Beacons will take on Plymouth State. That one actually caught the batter. So the home plate umpire wants to make sure that's certain. It's not a huge difference, the hit by pitch versus the walk in a 3-2 count. But, hey, you know what? I love Rick Delvecchio. He cares as much about the stats as we do. So 2 on with 2 outs.
And, here's how little rallies can start. Tulley was cruising, got through the first 2 batters. He'd been rolling for the last 4 innings, but he gives up a 2-out single to Lavoie, and now hits Vartuli. All of a sudden, the tying runs at the plate. That's why even when you've got a 2-out bases empty situation against a good pitcher, it's important to grind out your at-bats.
Big spot here for Kyle McLean, and he hits that one foul over the head of his first base coach. For strike 1, McLean is grounded out twice on the left side to the shortstop in the second, to the third baseman in the fourth with a runner on. Tulley has not given up a lot of hard-hit balls as the 0-1 is swung on and missed. Good movement, and it's 0-2 here. What are you thinking in this spot to try to put McLean away?
I think you got to waste one. Maybe high fastball here after a low breaking ball. Try to run the fastball up and in. That can set up pitches down the road.
Tulley, a long look. The 0-2 pitch swung on, foul back to the stop. Good contact from McLean to stay alive.
That was the fastball. Searles wanted it to the outside part, maybe even off the plate away. It actually caught a lot of the plate, and Tulley's a bit fortunate that McLean just fouled that back. But that's going to happen when you throw 93 and you're up in the count 0-2. Hitters likely trying to protect against the off-speed.
2 runners on, 2 down. Top 6, Beacons lead 3-0. Tulley's 0-2 offering, bounces up there, and Searles will fake the throw to force the runner back.
A lot of pitches outside. This is where maybe you come back to the inside part of the plate with a fastball and try to run it by McLean. Of course, the risk there, as this happened twice today, is you could hit the batter in that situation.
Tulley looking to complete this 6th inning scoreless, just like he did last week in a win over Plymouth State. Fastball misses well outside, 2-2.
Having to throw a few more pitches this inning than he had in previous innings. Went 6 1/3 innings last time out. He's at 84 pitches here with 2 outs in the 6th, so maybe one more inning for Tulley if he can get through this.
The 2-2, that one's hit out to center. Frashino can fly. He's not going to have to this time. And it's just a long fly ball. So Western has had a couple of chances today. 2 base runners on in the first, 2 in the 6th. But once again, Tulley able to work himself out of a mini jam. We head to the bottom of the 6th. The Beacons cruising, leading 3-0.
I did receive a non-athletic scholarship upon entering school.
I got the presidential scholarship, which was huge for me.
I think there's more opportunities for academic scholarships in Division III.
I did receive academic scholarships. Just being involved on campus, being a leader, all those things combined kind of get me recognized. It's a great experience for me.
Bottom of the 6th inning, UMass Boston leading 3-0. This could be the final game for this final doubleheader for Western's seniors and the final time that these Beacon seniors play on their home field. Next week's tournament will be at Southern Maine, and of course, They named the regionals in D3 baseball well ahead of time. It'll be played down on the Cape. So UMass Boston might get a chance to practice here next week. In fact, they will. They might get a chance to practice here a little bit before they head to the Cape. But these games are huge for both groups of seniors, and it'll be a big spot for the Beacons. Already leading 3-0. It's 3-4-5 as the first pitch comes in behind Boudris. And if there's bad blood like there was at Fenway, that could be an issue.
A little surprising to see Bielizna lose one that wildly, as he's been so accurate. He's only thrown 9 balls this entire game.
Boudris goes the other way. That skips past the third baseman, Daigle, and Boudris will round first, easily head into second as Gauze's throw as well late. And Kyle Boudris, he's not quite hitting in 29 in a row, but he's probably 25 of his last 29.
Well, when somebody throws it behind you, what's the best thing you can do? Take the very next pitch and hit it for extra bases. Good swing from Boudris, who had a sac fly earlier in the day to create one of the 3 Beacon runs, and now is his first hit of the day. Mentioning tournament venues, got to think somewhere down the line, Monin Park would be a great NCAA Division III regional venue.
You know, a little insider information, it certainly has been in the thought process. As Fowler will do the job, move him over to third base. Won't go down in the stat sheet as a sacrifice, but it's just as good as one. And Fowler's 1 for 3, but Boudris now at third base with 1 out.
Well, you mentioned just doing the job, and that's what the Beacons have done all day today. They've manufactured these runs. They've gotten runners in from third with less than 2 outs on RBI groundouts. A sacrifice fly here, moving the runner with a ground ball, approaching this the way winning teams do and the way a team that's won 10 in a row does.
Nick Herzog will look to drive in Boudris there from third base. First pitch to him, right down the middle of the breaking ball. Nick was hit by a pitch and scored in the second, and then grounded back to the pitcher to end the third inning. The Beacons with 2 in the second, 1 in the third. 3 runs on 6 hits and 2 errors. Western limited to 2 hits and 1 error. The suicide squeeze. Only play is to first. Bielizna's throw wide of the bag. Catch caught by Vartulis. Herzog ran into him, but it'll do the job once again. So that'll go down as a 1-3 sack bunt, and the Beacons lead 4-0.
Yep, picking up another run by manufacturing it. Double, ground ball to move him over, suicide squeeze to bring him in. This is textbook so far for UMass Boston.
Bring up Luke Nagel. Doubled a run scored in the second, grounded over to the second baseman in the fourth. Bielizna hasn't been hit all that hard, but the Beacons have done a nice job of helping produce runs as Nagel hits it softly down the first baseline. Another instance of not great contact, but we head to the 7th. The Beacons tack on another run. They lead 4-0 here on Senior Day.
I'm a Division III student athlete, and I know how powerful words can be. The term gay doesn't mean stupid, lame, or less than.
So I pledge to speak up if I hear the term gay used in a derogatory way or any other homophobic terms.
If you can play in Division III.
I'm a Division III student athlete, and my teammates unconditionally accepted me as part of their family. So now I pledge to do the same for others. If you can play in Division III.
Top of the 7th inning, and I will gladly hand it over. We've got a new pitcher and a new play-by-play guy as Bill Spalding takes over.
Well, Matt Tulley's day done after 6 innings, 6 wonderful innings. Gave up just 2 hits, a walk, hit 2 batters. He struck out 4. He does not allow a run. And Seth, maybe this is just what you were talking about when we mentioned heading into the conference tournament. You might pull guys a little bit early so that they definitely go off feeling good. Tulley leaves after throwing 85 pitches and in line for a win with the Beacons ahead 4-0. The new pitcher for UMass Boston is Brian Kaufman. So Brian Kaufman takes over. He has pitched tremendously this season out of the bullpen. He's a guy who has the ability to pitch 3 innings here, pick up a 3-inning save if need be. Kaufman this season, 13 games, 1 start, 1-0 record, a 1.07 ERA. That's best on the team. Out of the bullpen, 13 games, he's pitched 42 innings. So you do the math, that's more than 3 innings an outing. He's only given up 40 hits. He's only walked 13. He struck out 22. Opponents hitting .260 against him.
Brian Kaufman was vital to the Beacons last year, a good long relief guy, a spot starter. He's been one of the best relievers in the conference. Now, I don't think he's going to earn the spot he deserves, which is a first-team relief pitcher in the LEC, because he doesn't have the save numbers, and that's It's an issue you see with the advanced stat guys, and I'm not going to get into those, but you see the top ERA in the conference, plus the innings pitched. He's been in every single conference doubleheader because the Beacons know Mantoni's going to go 6, Tulley's going to go 5 or 6. Then we can turn it over to Kaufman. We can turn it over to Bobby Tramandosi to close it out. Brian Kaufman's just like a second starter. He's just going 2 or 3 innings versus 6 or 7.
He's pitched more innings than a lot of the starters in the league, 42 innings, because he's pitched so frequently. Bounce back ability is big. He pitched 3 innings a couple days ago against Salve Regina, and here he is back in the game 2 days later. In that game against Salve Regina, he gave up 1 unearned run in his first inning of work, but after a shaky inning, he got out of a bases-loaded jam. Next 2 innings, retired all 6 batters he faced.
And I love the move to go from Tulley to Kaufman, because you go from a real power pitcher to a guy who's going to throw a lot of off-speed pitches, who's just going to try to stay down in the zone and trust his defense. Tulley does some of that, but Kaufman is a nice contrast when you talk about velocities. The first pitch is fouled back.
Zach Pirro at the dish. Kaufman out of Farmingdale, New York, is a junior. Pirro today struck out looking in the second. He lined out hard to Nagel in left back in the 5th. Freshman's now 10 for 26 on the season. Swing and a miss at a breaking ball. It's a couple times where Pirro's looked a little foolish on the off-speed. So you wonder if the Beacon staff and the catcher Anthony Searle's starting to put 2 and 2 together here.
Well, Pirro looks like a guy who's trying to hit long balls. At 6 foot 250, he certainly has the physique, and the Beacons have tried to throw the off-speed pitches and confuse him.
Kaufman got him with the changeup. Strikes out the first batter he's faced. 1 away in the top of the 7th.
Tulley didn't get the strikeout numbers he had a week ago when I think he had 7 or 8, but still another efficient outing, and that's now 5 strikeouts for the Beacons pitching staff versus just the 1 walk. It's what Daniel Gamble, the Beacons pitching coach, emphasizes, a really high strikeout-to-walk ratio.
Zach Sager at the dish, a strikeout and a ground out so far, takes ball 1. Again, Tulley 6 innings of scoreless baseball, 2 hits, a walk, struck out 4. His last 2 starts, he's gone 12 1/3 innings, has not allowed a run, only given up 4 hits and 2 walks while striking out 12.
Yeah, how do you think his confidence level is going to be
Pretty
heading
high
into the tournament?
Yeah, he's feeling good, and he'll likely be the Beacon's 2nd starter in the conference tournament, which starts middle of next week. Dan Mantoni will be scheduled to pitch that first game.
Yeah, and the big thing is Mantoni will definitely go game 1 at this point because the Beacons are going to avoid Eastern. Eastern seems to be the only team that hits him well. It's another throw-off line.
Fowler makes the tag, and Sager's retired 6-3, saving the error from Charlie Hughey.
Yeah, that's the one thing that I think we've talked about it off air. The Beacons are going to focus on that Monday, Tuesday at practice. This Beacons infield has not had a great couple of games this week, despite the Beacons winning all their games. They're going to try to tighten up some of that infield defense heading into the tournament. Already 2 errors in this one.
Yeah, a lot of unearned runs allowed. A couple games ago, Fernando Burgos against Salve Regina gave up 4 runs. They were all unearned. First pitch to Joe Daigle is a ball. Daigle's reached on an error and grounded out. Beacons have made 2 errors today. I think that's now 9 errors over their last 4 games.
Not a stat that Kevin Kelly, the Beacons defensive coach, is going to love.
Breaking ball is strike at the knees. Still, UMass Boston has won each of those 3, and they've also won 10 in a row. Last loss was their first meeting with Southern Maine in this 10-game win streak. They've beaten Southern Maine 9-1. Heading into the day, Southern Maine's only conference loss, though USM was trailing UMass Dartmouth 3-0 in Game 2 of a doubleheader at last check.
Southern Maine's only loss in their last 20 or 21 at this point is that Beacons loss. That's why they're ahead of UMass Boston overall. Both teams are playing ridiculously high strength of schedules, playing as many teams in the regional rankings as possible. The Beacons have met each of the top 5 teams in the regional rankings, 1-1 against Southern Maine, and then wins over Salve, Westfield, and whoever sits at number 5. I think that's
Tufts, I believe, is at number 5. No, Tufts is at number 6. So who's at number 5?
Well, let's look at the Beacon schedule, and we're going to find them.
I'll let you go to work over there with a 2-2 count to Joe Daigle.
St. Joseph's College in Maine.
Yes, you're right. Yes. Tufts sits at 6 in the regional rankings. 2-2. Poked back to the screen.
And the Beacons overall 7-3 against New England regionally ranked opponents. They played SUNY Oswego and lost to SUNY Oswego down in Florida, but they also picked up a win over UW Oshkosh, who I didn't check today, but who was ranked last week, and Rowan, who is ranked again this week.
A 2-2. Swing and a miss. Strikeout for Kaufman, his 2nd of the inning. He comes in relief of Tulley and retires all 3 he faces. Already time to stretch here at Monin Park with the Beacons ahead 4-0.
What separates UMass Boston from other schools is the fact that a large percentage of students commute. For me, it takes 2 hours each day to go to and from school, but every second has been worth it because the students that come here are serious about learning, they value their education, and understand where it'll take them in the future. This is what UMass Boston means to me.
We move to the bottom of the 7th at Monin Park alongside Seth Orensky, Bill Spalding. So far, this game has gone right to script for UMass Boston. One win in the doubleheader guarantees them the number 2 seed overall in the conference. Western Connecticut State needed to win both games today to have any chance to stay alive. It's 4-0 Beacons as we play the bottom of the 7th. Nick Herzog will bat against George Bielizna, who's kept on plugging away. Anthony Searles, leading things off for the Beacons. Searles in the 7th spot, followed by Frashino and Hughie. Pitches a ball to Searles. It's 2-0. First time I can remember Bielizna getting to a 2-ball count. A guy who's only walked 5 in his entire season, now over 50 innings pitched.
Well, you're seeing the guy who's the least likely to walk a batter versus the guy who leads the conference in walks, so a little bit of battle of patience.
Searles looking to bunt, bangs it off himself in the box, so it's a foul ball. Count to 2-2.
It's a little difficult to find that ball for a while there.
The home plate umpire called it correctly immediately, but everybody else kept on playing.
I just want to give Rick Delvecchio a shout-out. This might be the most consistent umpire I've seen all year long. So while sometimes we question the umpires, when they do a great job, you need to give them props.
Yep. He'll be in the field for game number 2 as he'll switch positions with the field umpire. 2-2, Searles skies it right center field. McLean moving over, gives way to the center fielder LaRusso, and Cleat puts it away for out number 1.
Very little wind in this one, so ball pretty hanging up there and not being driven further away like we've seen at some points this week. Dan Mantoni had a bit of a wind-aided double the other night against Salve Regina, not to take anything away from the senior DH.
Brings up Sal Frashino, hitting at .245 on the season, 1 for 2 today. An RBI single in the 2nd, a fly out to left in the 4th. There's a strike. That's been pretty strong work from Bielizna over the last 4 innings. He's only faced 1 more than the minimum, starting with the 4th inning.
You know, we called him the anti-Traxel. You could also compare him in terms of the speed that he works at. It's almost a Greg Maddux type in that he takes 0 time between pitches, and he does a nice job of finding the corners. Now, obviously not as successful as Maddux, who's one of the greatest pitchers of baseball history, but that was the great thing about Greg Maddux and about certain strong pitchers. Those games went 2 hours and 5 minutes. Thus far, and I continue to knock on wood, we are seeing this game go at an unbelievable pace.
Right now it's an hour and 24 minutes old as we play with 1 out in the bottom of the 7th. 1-2. Almost hit Frashino. It's 2-2.
After that pitch, that was the 71st pitch, and there have been 12 balls. 12 balls and 71 pitches.
4 of them this inning as Frashino pops this up. Could be playable for Sager. He's out of space.
I mean, these numbers are incredible.
Yeah, Bielizna could very easily finish this game off, especially if Western Connecticut State doesn't come back. He would only pitch the 8 innings. The pitch count well below 100, barring a big Beacon outburst here.
I mean, even in a good softball game, you see a pitcher throw maybe 80 pitches in 7 innings. Bielizna doing this through 7 is phenomenal.
Ground ball, hit to second. Pitch number 73 leads to his 20th out recorded on the mound.
And a lot of them have been softly hit. You've seen a lot of left-handed hitters just rolling over. I think Bill Bassetto might be surprised at how much action he's had over there at second base. Just looking at my score sheet, it's been close to a half dozen plays over there.
Beacons have scattered 6 hits over the 4 innings, all the runs earned, but they've bunched their hits together in scoring innings. You look with 3 hits in the second to score 2 runs, 2 hits in the third, which contributed to a run, and then a hit followed by a successful ground out to move a runner home in the 6th. We're out of the 7th after Hugie grounds out to third. It's another lightning quick inning. Through 7, UMass Boston 4, Western Connecticut State nothing. Back in Monin Park, second inning of work for Brian Kaufman. Let's take a look around the Little East Conference. Keene State trailing Eastern Connecticut State 9-5 in game number 2 after winning game number 1. Southern Maine clinched the regular season championship with that 9-1 win in Game 1 to UMass Dartmouth. UMass Dartmouth win here would guarantee UMass Dartmouth, the Corsairs, a number 3 finish in the conference. And Rhode Island College looks like they're about to put the final nail in the coffin of Western Connecticut State's hopes even before this game goes final. With Seth Orensky, Bill Spalding, glad to be with you. Looks like UMass Boston will be the number 2 seed, barring big comeback from Western Connecticut State here. Beacons need just 1 win over this doubleheader to guarantee that number 2 seed in the tournament, which will be played in Gorham next week.
Yeah, it's interesting to see Western, who had so much success last year. They lost those top pitchers, and pitching is such a key, especially the LEC coaches all from top to bottom talk about how difficult this league is in baseball. It's a very strong league across most of the sports, but I think you can really make the argument with Southern Maine having won 2 national championships and Eastern having won 4 that this might be the best sport this league has.
Chance for Boudris, fires it across in time to get Gauze. Trey Gauze falls to 0 for 3, 1 away. And this is a sport where, you're always going to have teams out of this conference in the regional rankings.
Well, and you have 3 this week.
Yep.
Let's not forget UMass Dartmouth towards the bottom of it. And even then, you look at some of the teams towards the bottom of the conference, they still have some big wins. Western beat Ramapo on the 3rd of April. Ramapo is normally a very strong baseball program. Normally UMass Boston, Southern Maine, Eastern, whoever's towards the top of the conference has some close games, maybe even some trip-ups in conference play because of the talent. And a big part of it is these LEC teams are not afraid to schedule nationally ranked teams, whether it's in Florida or close by. They play the NESCACs, they play the NUMACs, that in most other sports are a step above, just a little bit, some of those LEC teams.
Nubbard is second from Cleet LaRusso, finishes him off with Lopez firing to Fowler. 2 very quick outs for Kaufman, who's retired all 5 he's faced out of the bullpen after Matt Tulley gave up just 2 hits and 6 scoreless innings.
Bill, we've seen 2 substitutions in this game. One of them came in the bottom of the first inning when Ryan McCormick, who was filling in case Dan Mantoni couldn't get here in time, was pinch hit for, and Mantoni stayed on. And now Kaufman. This game has been a pitcher's. Anybody who loves good pitching, but also anybody who loves quick baseball.
Yep.
If you want to make baseball fast, look at how these pitchers pitch. They all pitch quickly. They throw fastballs. They throw strikes.
Basetto lines it to left. Nagel got a late jump, leaps, and puts it away. It's a 1-2-3, top of the 8th. We've played 7.5 in an hour and a half. We go to the bottom of the 8th. 4-0, UMass Boston. We move to the top of the 8th inning here at Monin Park. Bottom of the 8th at Monin, and George Bielizna has an opportunity for what would likely be a complete game if he can get through these 3 innings, these 3 outs rather, here in the 8th. 4-0, bottom of the 8th. George Bielizna's pitched the first 7, allowing 4 runs on 6 hits, all earned. He hasn't walked anybody. He has thrown only 75 pitches as we start the 8th inning. 4-0 UMass Boston, 2 in the 2nd, 1 in the 3rd, 1 in the 6th with Seth Orensky. I'm Bill Spalding. And this may end up being loss number 2 for George Bielizna if he doesn't get any offensive help heading into the top of the 9th. But he's pitched pretty fabulously as well.
I'm a big fan of George Bielizna. I mean, any guy who is going to throw this many strikes, granted there's an argument to be said that he's throwing too many of them, but this is what I try to do as a very low-level athlete. We're talking middle school, early high school. Throw strikes, trust your defense, because the idea of having to paint a corner every single time leads to a lot of walks, and that's where pitchers get in trouble. He's the exact opposite. He doesn't overpower you. He doesn't throw that hard, but he does such a nice job of keeping it close to the strike zone and allowing his defense and the umpire to help him out.
Lopez is jammed. Bisetto has that magnet over there at second base as he puts away another one. Do the quick tally here. Over the last 2 1/3 innings, Bisetto has seen 4 ground balls. Over the game, he has now seen 7 ground balls to second base.
Yeah, Bill's having his having to make a lot of plays, but none of them have been that hard hit. You haven't seen him have to make a really nice play diving to his left or diving to his right. These are just routine plays, and Bisetto and this defense have played extremely well.
Dan Mantoni takes a ball. Mantoni is 0 for 3 today with 3 groundouts. Bielizna, since the start of the 4th inning, has given up just 1 hit. It was a double to Kyle Boudris. Boudris came around to score the Beacons' 4th run. Lavoie fires it across. Mantoni goes 0 for 4 with 4 groundouts. He's retired at this point. 14 of the last 15 he's faced, again, outside of that Boudris double. Boudris came home after a groundout moved him to 3rd, and a suicide squeeze brought him home.
That 6th inning, it just showed exactly what is going right for the Beacons, and the fact that this team is so unselfish. Chris Fowler wasn't trying to hit a ball over the outfielder's head. He knew, just get it to the right side, get an insurance run here at that point for Matt Tulley, and that's why this Beacons team has been so successful during this run. They get runners home to keep pushing that lead further and further. They haven't allowed teams to stick around. 4-0 would be the closest the Beacons have been in a while, the exception of Amherst getting a couple runs back yesterday to end the game down 9-5.
Ground ball, hit to second. Bisetto to first, and if that's it for Bielizna, great outing. Be a complete game, 8 innings pitched, 4 runs, 6 hits, 1 strikeout. It was the very first batter of the day. He's trusted his defense since. We'll go to the 9th. UMass Boston leads 4-0. Can clinch the number 2 spot in the conference tournament with 3 more outs here on the Beacons Broadcast Network.
Division III allows you to give yourself to other things.
Having that free time allows me to pursue the things that I want to pursue.
Division III athletics affords students the opportunity to, engage in the other interests in their campus and in their lives outside of that sport.
It allows you to just be able to do everything you want to do. I wouldn't change it for the world.
Brian Kaufman back on the mound. Opportunity to pick up his save here, even though he came in when the game was 4-0. If you record the final 9 outs or more, you earn the save, which is why in that game a few years ago where I believe the Baltimore Orioles and Texas Rangers played a game that was something like 30-3, a pitcher actually got a save in that game, which is one of my favorite baseball statistics of all time. With Seth Orensky, I'm Bill Spalding. More importantly for UMass Boston, they can clinch the number 2 seed in the conference tournament with 3 more outs, and it will officially eliminate Western Connecticut State from playoff contention. Let's take a look around Beaconville one more time in Game 1 of the doubleheader. Men's tennis leading Bridgewater State in a close Little East Conference semifinal down at the Weymouth Club in Weymouth, Massachusetts. Next game for UMass Boston softball, 8 p.m. tonight against top-seeded Plymouth State. Winner will be into the championship, and lacrosse will take on Plymouth State just behind us here, 8 p.m. tonight. And at this rate, Seth, I don't know, maybe we'll race to the start of the lacrosse face-off.
Yeah, I mean, maybe I can join John Scooters over there for that one. Who knows?
E.J. Lavoie, first pitch, ground ball right back to Brian Kaufman. One away in the ninth.
Just one last comment on George Bielizna. 8 innings, 6 hits, 4 runs, 4 earned. Not that many hard hit balls. 0 walks, 1 strikeout. That's the part I love the most. Not trying to get those strikeouts. 85 pitches, 68 for strikes. I don't know if I've ever seen a more efficient line in 8 innings of work, which unless Western scores 4 runs before they get 2 outs, will go down as a complete game.
And of those 17 balls, 9 came in his last 2 innings of work. So over the first 6 innings, he only threw 8 balls.
And Bill, the Beacons came into this one averaging close to 10 runs a game in their last 10 games, all wins. Limiting the Beacons to 4 runs on 6 hits is a win in itself.
Frank Vartuli digs in. Ground ball foul. Count quickly 0-2 to him. Brian Kaufman has not allowed a base runner since he entered the game. He's faced 7. He's struck out 2. 1 line drive. The other 4 ground outs.
We've seen Western come up with just 2 hits all game. This has been one of the best pitch games I think I've ever seen at the Division III level.
The 2 hits for Western, an infield single on a ball that hopped over the mound but short of shortstop, and a ground ball through the hole between second and first.
It's been a remarkable baseball game.
1-2 to Vartuli. Breaking ball. Check swing. Did he go? No.
Well, when we get the final time on this game, I'm going to put an asterisk next to Will Bauer's name because that was close. And that would have taken us a little bit closer to one of the quickest, certainly the quickest baseball game that's ever been played here at Monin Park involving UMass Boston.
2-2 to Vartuli. Ground ball hit hard to third. There's Boudris. And it's out number 2. 1 out away, and Seth, that only added about 25 seconds, so I think he can take the asterisk away.
It's interesting there. It looked like Fowler was fighting the sun a little bit as he tried to hold on to the bag. I wonder if that affected his vision on those 2 balls that were thrown over earlier. This is a little bit of an earlier start time than we've been seeing. The Beacons have been playing 7s consistently as we just look for some other talking points other than the phenomenal pitching in this contest.
Now it's Kyle McLean, 0 for 3, 2 ground outs and a fly out. First pitch swinging. He grounds to second. Lopez over to first. And in an hour and 37 minutes, UMass Boston takes down Western Connecticut State 4-0 to clinch second place in the Little East Conference Tournament and eliminate Western Connecticut State from playoff contention.
The Beacons tie the program record for most wins in an LEC season with 10. They earned their 11th straight victory. They moved to 28-9. It eliminates Western Connecticut State, although they already may have been eliminated. We didn't get a final score from Plymouth. But, Bill, they say you can see something you've never seen before anytime you go to a ballpark or a sporting event. I don't know if I will ever see a baseball game that goes 9 innings in an hour and 37. I certainly haven't seen it before.
Matt Tulley, the winning pitcher. He allows just 5 base runners, only 2 hits. Brian Kaufman, 3 perfect innings for a save. They'll both head into the conference tournament feeling pretty good. Tough luck loss for George Bielizna, who falls to 3-2 on the year with his 8-inning complete game. We'll take a break. When we come back about half hour or 40 minutes from now, we'll have Game 2, but first we'll come back and wrap up Game number 1 here on the Beacons Broadcast Network.
I'm a Division III student athlete, and I know how powerful words can be. The term gay doesn't mean stupid, lame, or less than.
So I pledge to speak up if I hear the term gay used in a derogatory way or any other homophobic terms.
If you can play in Division III.
I'm a Division III student athlete, and my teammates unconditionally accepted me as part of their family. So now I pledge to do the same for others. If you can play in Division III.
Senior Day ceremony will take place now here on the Beacons Broadcast Network. We'll bring it to you. Stick our headset out the window and toss it over to the great public address announcing here on the Beacons Broadcast Network.
Ladies and gentlemen, at this time, UMass Boston would like to take a moment to recognize 4 senior players who are playing in their final regular season home games today. Our first senior to be honored is number 28, Matt Tulley. A Division I transfer, Matt has made an immediate impact in his first season as part of the Beacon starting rotation, becoming only the second pitcher in program history to be named to the D3Baseball.com Team of the Week. Including this afternoon's action that was just completed here at Monon Park, Matt has an ERA of 2.56 and leads the staff with 6 wins. In over 45 innings of work, Matt has accumulated 51 strikeouts and has held opponents to a 198 batting average, and has also started in 2 of the 3 Beacon shutouts this season. A business management major hailing from Lowell, Massachusetts, number 28, Matt Tulley. Matt being joined by his parents. Our second senior to be honored is number 26, Luke Nagel. A 3-year member of the Beacons program, Luke arrived on the Harbor campus in 2015 and instantly contributed. In 73 games played, including today's action, Luke has recorded 68 hits with 34 runs batted in and 34 runs scored. Last season, Luke was sidelined by an injury, but that didn't stop him from becoming one of the team's most vocal leaders. This season, he's returned to the starting lineup in a big way, recording 22 hits in 52 at-bats, including 7 extra base hits. A criminal justice major hailing from Pembroke, Massachusetts, number 26, Luke Nagel, who is joined by his folks. Our third senior to be honored here this afternoon is number 7, Dan Mantoni. A 4-year member of the program and a 3-time captain, Dan will be appearing in his 161st career game coming up in game number 2, and that will move him into 5th place all-time in Beacon's history. Earlier this week, Dan became just the 3rd player in program history to record his 200th career hit. Coming into today's doubleheader, Dan has 48 career doubles, 5 triples, 10 home runs, 121 RBI, and 129 runs scored. One of the most impressive two-way players. Dan is about to step out on the pitcher's mound in a little while. It will be for the 38th time, boasting a career record of 14-5 with an ERA of 3.71 and 149 strikeouts and 194 innings of work. An electrical engineering major hailing from Northbridge, Massachusetts, number 7, Dan Mantoni, accompanied by his parents. And our fourth and final senior to be honored here this afternoon is number 13, Anthony Searles. One of the top catchers in program history, Anthony will be appearing in his 157th career game coming up in just a little bit. A true leader behind the plate, Anthony has helped make this year's senior class the most successful in the program's long history. During a standout career on the Harbor campus, Dan has totaled 875 putouts, 130 assists, and has thrown out 47 would-be base stealers, a number representing nearly 1/4 of all runners who have attempted to swipe a base against the Beacons backstop. A 2-time all-conference selection, Anthony helped anchor a Beacons defense that was one of the best during last season's run to the NCAA regional tournament. An economics major hailing from Shelton, Connecticut, number 13, Anthony Searles, being joined by members of the Searles family. UMass Boston would like to congratulate and thank Matt, Luke, Dan, and Anthony on their amazing careers and wish them the best of luck in next week's Little East Conference tournament. Ladies and gentlemen, how about one more?
So that puts an end to our Senior Day ceremony. Always nice to go into that ceremony coming off a win. Beacons win Game 1 4-0. Let's look at the highlights from the Game 1 UMass Boston win. So those are your highlights from the Beacons 4-0 win. Quick thank you to our production crew working hard through this doubleheader in the last couple weeks of classes. So good work by all the production crew here on the Beacons Broadcast Network, including producer Seth Orensky, the rest of the gang. They'll be with us again for game number 2, which is coming up in about a half an hour. Keep it tuned here on the Beacons Broadcast Network. We'll be back with first pitch of game number 2 when we return. Set for game number 2, a doubleheader here between UMass Boston and Western Connecticut State to round out the regular season in Little East play. Beacons won game 1, 4-0 in 1 hour and 35 minutes. Bill Spalding with you. Steve Consiglio will be along shortly as well. UMass Boston is guaranteed the number 2 seed in next week's Little East tournament. They'll play 5th-seeded Rhode Island College. Western Connecticut State has been eliminated, so this game will wrap up the regular season for Western Connecticut State. They enter at 15-19, 3-10 in the conference. The Beacons are now 28-9, 10-3 in the conference. Let's take a look at the starting lineup for Western Connecticut State. For WestConn, in a game that now has no meaning in terms of playoff future, they start 6 seniors at the top of the order. Some of the regulars, like E.J. Lavoie and Frank Vartuli, but Joe Costa, Brian Harper, and Dave Palladino all get starts as well. The defense for UMass Boston looks exactly the same as game number 1. The Beacons made no changes in the lineup other than Dan Mantoni is also the pitcher along with designated hitting. So that's the defense for the Beacons. The starting pitcher is Dan Mantoni, making his 10th start of the year. He's a senior who just celebrated his senior day in between games. Mantoni in 9 starts this season is 4-1 with a 4.21 ERA. He's pitched 51 1/3 innings. He has given up only 48 hits. He's walked 22 and struck out 40. And there once again is the Beacons defense. No changes from game 1 to game 2. Big number to watch for Dan Mantoni in this start is 6 innings. If he goes 6 innings, he'll wrap up his regular season career with at least 200 innings pitched and at least 200 hits, showing how versatile and well-rounded he is. Mantoni, a senior from Northbridge, Massachusetts, out of Hopedale Junior Senior High School. Coming off a win against Plymouth State where he pitched 6 innings, gave up 4 runs on 4 hits. He walked 3 and struck out 5. So after the Beacons went an hour and 35 minutes in game number 1, game 2 set to go here at 6:20, a time when most would have thought we'd still be playing game number 1 of today's doubleheader. Game went so quickly that Steve Consiglio is just now running in and grabbing his headset. Steve, good to see you. Beacons weren't messing around in game number 1, breezing through an hour and 35-minute 4-0 win, allowing just 2 hits in a combined outing from Matt Tulley and Brian Kaufman. And now Dan Mantoni takes the ball here for game 2.
Yeah, it's got to be the fastest game ever played in the modern era.
At least here.
I'm still out of breath. I'm sorry, Bill.
No problem.
Long walk.
First pitch to Joe Costa is inside for ball 1. Costa, one of 6 seniors for Western Connecticut State, getting a start in the final game of the year for Western Connecticut State. Pitch low, ball 2. For just the second time in 5 seasons, the Colonial season will end before the Little East Conference Tournament. Southern Maine has locked up the number 1 seed. The Beacons are guaranteed to be the number 2 seed, and they'll be playing Rhode Island College in the first round of the Little East Conference Tournament up in Gorham. The number 1 seed, University of Southern Maine, will play 6th-seeded Keene State. And then Eastern Connecticut State and UMass Dartmouth will play in the 3-4 game. This ball's bounced foul, count to 2-2.
Being a Beacons returner, it always feels good to end WestCon's season solely because they ended our postseason bid last year for the LEC tournament. Lucky enough, UMass Boston was able to get a regional bid and was sent out to Pennsylvania.
Yep. 2-2, ground ball hit to third. Boudris has been busy today, and he fires it over to Chris Fowler at first. There's one away. In the new regional rankings, which were put out today, the Beacons were picked up as the number 2 team in the New England region, just behind Southern Maine, the number 1 team. Brian Harper, the catcher, is the batter. Harper, a .294 hitter, 1 home run, 6 RBIs. Another senior starting in his final game for Western Connecticut State. First pitch swinging, Harper down to the count 0-1. He's from Ledyard, Connecticut, out of St. Bernard's High School. 0-1 from Mantoni. Miss Ty had a big presentation today, got through that quickly, and he was here just as game number 1 was getting underway. He wasn't technically in the lineup at the start of game 1, but he pinch hit for Ryan McCormick in the bottom of the first inning. So McCormick earns the start without ever seeing the field. Mantoni got 4 at-bats in game 1. This ball's fouled back. Count stays at 2-2. Different sort of outing here for Mantoni. He's used to pitching game 1 where he has as much time as he needs to loosen up. Gets a called strike 3 on the inside corner. His first strikeout today, his 41st of the year. Steve, this time around he had about a half hour after senior day to get ready to go in game 2. So when you're a pitcher and you're a creature of habit, if your rhythm gets changed a little bit, does that make much of a difference for a guy like Dan Mantoni?
Mantoni's been pitching weekends and conference games his whole life. Last year he was the number 1, but 2 years ago he was the number 2 behind Kyle Satrowski. So I don't think it'll be that much different. You know, Mantoni's hitting anyway, so he's staying warm. It's not like he's sitting on the bench the entire game 1. So I think he'll be ready to go and he'll come out firing like he has.
A 2-0 count to E.J. Lavoie, who entered the doubleheader hitting .404. Went 1 for 4 in game 1. He'll need at least 1 hit here in game 2 to end his senior season hitting above .400. Ground ball up the middle, and there is a hit for E.J. Lavoie. Just the 3rd hit today for Western Connecticut State, and their first hit since the 5th inning of game 1. We'll move things around for Frank Vartuli, who was 0 for 4 and made the final out of game 1. Vartuli, a big power threat, 5 home runs, 37 RBIs. He had a good Little East Conference tournament last year when Western Connecticut State advanced to the championship game. Steve, you mentioned Dan hitting in game 1. That keeps him warm. I don't think anyone could tighten up in the speed. Game 1 was played in an hour and 35 minutes to play the 9 innings. And as much as we talked about the Beacons pitching staff, got to give a shout out to Western Connecticut starter George Bielizna, who pitched a complete game, 8 innings, pitched only 85 pitches, 68 for strikes. Gave up 4 runs on 6 hits, but only allowed 1 base runner from the 4th inning on. Yeah,
that's what you call a Greg Maddux start. You know, he's always in the strike zone, doesn't waste any pitches out of the strike zone, no curveballs in the dirt, fastballs 2 feet outside, just complete control and just throwing strikes.
Here comes a 2-0 to Vartuli. It's now 3-0. And, you know, that 17 balls to 68 strikes sounds impressive enough. Through his first 70 pitches, he had only thrown 8 balls. 62 strikes to 8 balls over his first 70 pitches.
That's the point where you're almost allowing the batters to get comfortable in the box. You know, there's a reason why they call it effectively wild.
Yeah, we talked about that in game 1. It was becoming a pattern for the Beacons knowing what to expect. After Mantoni got the first 2 batters, he allows Lavoie to single, Vartuli to walk, something we talked about in game 1 when Matt Tulley allowed the first 2 to reach before settling down. If you're going to get to a good pitcher, oftentimes you can get to them in the first inning.
Absolutely. You know, you never want to let a guy get in a groove. Always coming back for the 2nd, 3rd, 4th innings always are easier than the first inning. At least for me, they were. And I know Mantoni's always struggled a little bit in the first inning. You know, getting control of his fastball, control of that good changeup, and usually the curveball is his getaway pitch that he can just flip in for a strike, and usually batters don't jump on it.
In the final game of the season, senior Dave Palladino gets to start in right field. First pitch to him is a strike. This season, Palladino's hit 167 with 4 RBIs. He's out of Southington, Connecticut. Southington High School, one of the top baseball high schools in Connecticut, year in, year out, competing for state titles.
Yeah, they ended my senior year.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Ball on his strike to the right-handed batter, Palladino.
In high school, that is.
Yep.
Pomprock High School, they beat us in the 2nd round.
They had
for the state tournament.
When I was working in minor league baseball, one of the top young pitchers on the Dayton Dragons was from Southington High School, Sal Romero. Yeah, Sal Romero, you're right, yep.
He started for the Cincinnati Reds this year, actually.
Inside pitch is a ball. It's 2-1. Yeah, he's quickly moved up the ranks. So, been producing guys like him out of that high school for a long time.
Hard-throwing lefty, I think.
Lefty. Yeah, lefty sinker bowler, yep. 2 balls and this strike to Dave Palladino, the right fielder for Western Connecticut State. 2-1 from Mantoni. There's a strike. It's 2-2. How can you explain the fact that it oftentimes takes a pitcher a little while to get a rhythm? Is it nerves? Is it just getting comfortable with how you're feeling that particular day?
I mean, it almost can be like adjusting from mound to mound, warming up in the bullpen mound and coming into the game mound. That's what I usually struggle with.
Weak pop up to second. Josh Lopez gets to it, and Dan Mantoni works around a couple early control issues and gets out of the top of the first unscathed. We go to the bottom of the first. No score on the Beacons Broadcast Network.
What do we mean when we say UMass is here for a reason? We mean that the 5-campus UMass system is the only public research university that the people of Massachusetts established to create better futures for themselves, but also for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts as a whole. It's a university that educates 73,000 students every day and graduates 17,000 graduates every year. We are the university that educates the workforce of Massachusetts. We're one of the state's 3 major academic research engines: research that saves and improves people's lives, and research that drives the innovation economy of Massachusetts. We provide services and economic opportunity to every region of the Commonwealth. The noted historian David McCullough once said that 2 great concepts, university and Massachusetts, come together in only one place, and we are very aware of how fortunate we are to bear the name, the University of Massachusetts. We recognize that we are truly here for a reason, and that recognition inspires us and drives us every single day.
Back at Monin Park, bottom of the first. Here's the lineup for UMass Boston, and it may look pretty familiar because it's the lineup the Beacons have been sticking with during this run. And, hey, if you've won 11 in a row, why change it? There is one change to that lineup. Ryan McCormick is not the designated hitter. Dan Mantoni hitting for himself in the number 2 spot. Everything else as it was in game number 1. With Steve Consiglio, I'm Bill Spalding. Beacons going up against right-handed pitcher Eric Nicholson out of Old Lyme, Connecticut. Nicholson pitching in his 8th game of the year, making his 6th start. He's 2-1 with a 4.97 ERA. He's pitched 29 innings, given up 42 hits, 13 walks, and struck out 18. Josh Lopez will lead off. He was 1 for 4 in game 1. So Lopez leading off. He'll be followed by Dan Mantoni and Kyle Boudris.
Number 14, Josh Lopez.
First pitch from the sophomore Nicholson is a fastball just inside for a ball. Well, positive for Western Connecticut State as they will miss the tournament, and this is their final game. Their go-to starting pitchers are sophomores. They're weekend starters, so that means they should be able to grow over the next couple of years with this group.
Absolutely. You know, it's always impressive to have a sophomore weekend guy, especially as successful as the first guy was today. You know, he just throwing a lot of strikes. It seemed like the pitcher right now, Bielizna.
This is Eric Nicholson on the mound.
Nicholson. Bielizna was first game?
First game was Bielizna. Yes,
Bielizna.
George Bielizna. Yep.
Spelling error. But it seemed Richardson struggled with hits.
Nicholson hits the inside corner, and it's 3-2.
I'm all over the place right now. Let me write that down.
Well, we'll give you a break. You ran your way over here after class. Game 1 finished so quickly.
Open the window. Get a breath of fresh air.
Ball's fouled back and stays 3-2. Yeah, it was a really impressive performance. And the Beacons grinded out those runs. Professional at bats. 1 run came home on a 1-out ground out with a runner on third. Another on a suicide squeeze. Another on a sacrifice fly. Lopez stings this one to center, and it's down. Bouncing off the center fielder, Lana. And into left. Lopez into second. Should be a single and an error on the center fielder, Joel Luna. Sharp single for Josh Lopez, his second hit today as he's trying to snap out of a mini slump over the past 3 games. Brings up Dan Mantoni. Mantoni had 3 hits yesterday, but was 0 for 4 with 4 groundouts in game 1. Beacons have won 11 in a row.
Your co-captain, number 7, Dan Mantoni.
Mantoni hitting at .322, 2 home runs, 33 RBIs, and he's a bit of a dying breed, a pitcher who still hits for himself at the college level. There's ball 1 inside. Mantoni doesn't play the field. He pitches or he DHs, but at the Division III level, you see a few guys who carry over and do both, but not all that many, and fewer each season.
Well, it's interesting because the number 1 draft pick this year for the MLB, Hunter Green, is actually a two-way guy.
Yep.
He can hit and he can pitch.
Just saw the Sports Illustrated article on him. He throws 102 and he has late tower power. That has to be fun, even for one day, right? 1-1 is inside for a ball. It's 2-1.
I got the bat taken out of my hand when I was a senior in high school. I haven't hit since.
2-ball, 1-strike count to Dan Mantoni with Josh Lopez on second base after a single and an error. Mantoni fouls this back. In game one, this is where the Beacons were really disciplined at hitting to the right side to move the runner over to third. A ground ball like that from Chris Fowler set up a sacrifice fly, allowing Kyle Boudris to score back in the 6th inning of game one. 2-2 to Mantoni's in the dirt, and the count runs full. Beacons will be off until Wednesday when they'll head up to Gorham, Maine for the Little East Conference Tournament. Southern Maine will wrap up in first place. Beacons in second, UMass Dartmouth in third. Pfister from Mantoni brings it back to the screen. 4th seed will be Eastern Connecticut State, the 5 seed Rhode Island College, who the Beacons swept during the regular season. And the 6th seed will be Keene State, which is a tough matchup in game one for Southern Maine. They have a great number 1 pitcher. Mantoni smokes this to center. Good read from Lopez rounding third. He'll stop there with nobody out. Beacons put runners on the corners. Back-to-back singles. Mantoni hit that one so hard that even though Lopez read it well, not worth the risk with nobody out and the meteor order coming up.
Yeah, especially with Boudras, a smart hitter coming up. Very small chance he'll strike out. He'll definitely put the ball in play and that run will score.
Kyle Boudris doubled and scored in game one, sitting at .394 on the season.
The third baseman, number 15, Kyle Boudris.
Beacons did have just 1 hit from the 4th inning on in game one, but already 2 hits here in the 1st inning of game two after a 4-0 win in game one. It's a first pitch strike to Boudris. Boudris on the day 1 for 3, a sacrifice fly and a double. Picked up his 24th RBI of the season. Smokes this to center, falling quickly, and there is his 25th RBI of the year. 3rd single in a row to start the game for UMass Boston as Lopez scores. You had the feeling this game could go one of 2 ways. Either Western Connecticut State comes out really inspired with a bunch of seniors in their final game and plays really hard, or if the Beacons get a big lead early, could turn into a real laugher as UMass Boston's made no changes in its lineup, keeping its A squad in, winning 11 straight and looking to go into the conference tournament on a high note.
I do think this is a tough matchup for Nicholson, especially against this hitting Beacons team. Now, he did give up, you said, 42 hits in 29 innings.
Yep.
It's a big number, especially for a weekend guy. You said he's a sophomore. He's got a lot to learn. Maybe he'll go outside the strike zone a little bit, as he does there, to get the Beacons out.
Count to 0-2 on Fowler, who doubled off the monster in the left to extend his hit streak to 30 games, just 4 behind Steve Coffey's all-time UMass Boston record. 0-2, Fowler grounds it slowly towards second. Costa's there, flips to short for 1. Lavoie back to first, not in time. Fielder's choice, Fowler's aboard. Mantoni to third base. Boudris retired on the 6-4. So it does put a runner on third with just 1 out for Nick Herzog as the Beacons will look to go up 2-0.
The right fielder, number 34, Nick Herzog.
This is a big at-bat here with the Beacons entering the conference tournament. You have to get the runner home here with less than 2 outs.
Herzog sprays it down the line and right, foul. And that's something UMass Boston was great at in game one. Only 6 base runners throughout the course of the game. 4 of them scored. Bunched their hits together. 3 hits in the 2nd inning, which led to 2 runs. 2 hits in the 4th inning, which led to 1 run. 1 double, followed by a productive ground out and a suicide squeeze to bring home the final run in the 6th. Fowler diving back into first, still looking for his first stolen base of the season. Fowler had one of the Beacons' 2 home runs yesterday in the win against Amherst. Fowler and Luke Nagel both homered for the Beaks. Herzog takes a breaking ball for a strike as that caught the front door. No balls, 2 strikes. So now Herzog will have to protect here. Infield is back. They'll surrender a run. especially looking for that double play. Part of a busy day of sports in the Little East Conference, and here on the campus of UMass Boston, Herzog hammers this through the hole, base hit. Fourth hit of the inning, Mantoni scores. 2-0 Beacons. 27th RBI of the year for Nick Herzog. Mentioned the busy day. UMass Boston lacrosse will play a Little East Conference semifinal against Plymouth State at 8 o'clock, just behind us here at BC High's Field. UMass Boston softball's already won once today. They're playing for a spot in the Little East Conference Championship at Plymouth State later on tonight. And Beacons tennis in action right now in Weymouth against Bridgewater State in a playoff game. First pitch to Luke Nagel outside for ball one. In game one, Luke Nagel was 1 for 3. He's now 15 for 24 over the Beacons' last 7 games. It's a better than 600 batting average as he watches a ball.
Yeah, he's got his own little hitting streak going too. I think he's around 7 or 8 games. Obviously, that's not anything close to what Fowler's at, but that's still always a good thing to have.
2-0 coming to Nagel. Sprayed foul. Hope you stayed with us between games for the Senior Day ceremony. Nagel, one of the 4 honored. Each player got a personalized wooden bat from the staff as well. I don't know if you kept your mementos, of course, from your Senior Day, Steve.
I still have it in my room, the wooden bat, and I got a duffel bag as well, or a computer laptop bag.
Nagel hits this hard down the line. Foul. Just sliced left. Nagel hitting the ball the other way well, and so have the Beacons as a whole. That's oftentimes the sign of a team that's really clicking on the offensive end when you start driving the ball the opposite way.
Yeah, like I said, this Beacons team can really hit. I've been hot lately. I got their batting average from 220 in the early stage of the season up to 280, 290, and it's just, that's not easy to do, especially with all the at-bats you got.